Hello and welcome to the David 67 Celtic News live stream for Thursday the 20th of August. A few people already making comments in the comment box, which is great. Obviously, I was a wee bit nervous about doing a live stream today with Celtic having had that vital game yesterday evening at Celtic Park in the first leg of the final qualifier against LASK. It was a pretty exciting game, end-to-end action. And in the end, Celtic got a pretty remarkable 3-0 win. Obviously gives Celtic a big advantage going into the next leg away from home in Linz in Austria. So hail to you, Michael Ross. Celtic still champions, at the very least until the end of May of next year. Hail to you as well, Rubber Duck. And in the end, I'm not sure, a 3-0 win obviously was a big win, and on paper it looked like an easy win, but it was far from easy. Hail to you, Michael Ross. Hail Paul McGuire. Lovely to have you on. Hail to Rubber Duck as well. Hail pretty much to everybody. And as I said, I was a wee bit nervous about doing a live stream just in case Celtic's result yesterday evening wasn't so great. But as it turned out, we had nothing to worry about, although I do think, and hail, welcome to Alison Timpany as well. And not sure if Paul Burrell at 6885 still on, but if you are, we will be doing hopefully some updates on potential new signings, although as things stand, we haven't actually made anybody. Good evening to you, Dexter, as well. Good evening to all the Celtic fans watching. Lovely to have people on. Yes, plunge 274. It was a very good performance. 3 world-class goals. Can't disagree with that. And good evening to you as well. It was world-class goals is definitely. Oh, great to have you on as well, Michael McCafferty. Good evening to you as well. We had a nice wee chat at half-time at the end of the game, and this morning through the comment section. Well, thank you for that question. Oh, that prediction, Peter McGinn. It was one of the things I was planning to put up a wee poll on the channel. So to see if I can find that. Oops. Just give me a second, Jeff. There we are. Just put this up in the corner. Lovely. So Peter McGinn's prediction is 2-0 in Austria. I'm not sure if that's 2-0 for Celtic or 2-0 for LASK. Michael Ross, second leg won't be easy, but I'm confident we will score. I think Celtic have certainly got the players to score goals away from home. I think we're a bit better placed in terms of scoring goals away from home with people like Camilo Duran, with Casper, who as a sort of target man and an out ball, I think he's a much better option for Celtic than it would have been had we been using Daizen who's the player we tended to use quite a bit as the out ball previously. Michael McCafferty, thank you. Good performance last night. You are entirely right, Michael McCafferty. It was a good performance all last night. Plunge 274. Rangers are winning 1-0. Last alert, Hibs were drawing 0-0. Motherwell had gone 2-1 down, unfortunately, to a penalty and a red card. And Hearts were losing 1-0 at half-time. Haven't checked the scores more recently. 3 goals again for Michael McCafferty. I would be... My personal feeling is if my personal feeling is for the away leg is that Celtic probably, I think, are going to get a draw. I think Celtic's certainly good enough to score a goal away from home with the pace of players like Duran, Yang, Gineitis, Hassan. I think Hassan's getting better and better with every game. He came on with 10 minutes or so to go yesterday evening, and made one or two nice runs, one or two nice crosses that got blocked out. Again, I think he's a player. If Celtic get the ball to him, even halfway inside Celtic's half, he's got the pace, the burden to beat the fullbacks on either side of the LASK defence. The two fullbacks, Jorgensen and Bello, aren't the best defenders. They don't really give LASK an awful lot of proper width. A lot of LASK stuff goes right through the middle. We were caught out, obviously, a few times with balls over the top of Carter Vickers and Trusty into the space behind them. We nearly conceded a goal in 30 seconds. We nearly conceded what would have been an equaliser from that header that was offside. So I do think there are something do have to guard against Uzor, the Nigerian centre forward, and Adeniran, the American centre forward that they have. They've also got a very good attacking midfielder, Christoph Lang, who's scored 6 goals this season, although most of them were against a lower division team in the cup earlier on for LASK. But yep, plunge, that's right. Hibs, Motherwell losing 2-1 now. Hibs 0-0 when I last looked. Rangers 1-0 up. It's one of these ones where obviously if one's being Scottish, it is good if quite right. Michael Ross, Freiburg are a very good team. I think they got all the way to the Europa League final last season, so they are a team with a lot of quality. Pretty hard team for Hearts. For Motherwell to have got it this round. I was hoping that Hearts would do okay against Vienna. My thought was that Rangers would probably come through against Jablonec of the Czech Republic. I was a wee bit sceptical about how well Hibs would do. They are drawing 0-0 away from home, which is good for Hibs and good for Scotland and good for Scotland's coefficient. And if Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, Motherwell all get into the Conference League and all do get some wins and stuff, that will boost Scotland's coefficient and, in effect, Celtic's chances of qualifying in future Champions Leagues. Yep. Okay. Lovely. Kenneth Todd, I think LSK will go for it at home next week. Tough start, but if we can hold them off for the first 20, 30 minutes, we'll score 2, 3 or 4 goals. I would be surprised if we get that many goals, but what I think we found out from the first leg was that LASK do have weaknesses in defence. Celtic, for the third goal especially, was a brilliant goal by Celtic, started by Austin Trusty, bringing the ball out of defence. Lovely passing to Casper Hu, brilliant layoff to Nygren quickly passing to Duran then passing back to Nygren on the edge of the box. Nygren then laying it off perfectly into Duran's path for a brilliant shot into the top corner. But I think LASK, like they did at Celtic Park, we'll go for it in the first. I think we'll go for it definitely in the first 20, 30 minutes, as Kenneth Todd is suggesting. I think we can hold them off. I think we can quite happily defend that bit deeper. One of the things, as I say, they did try and do was exploit space behind Trusty and Carter Vickers. And obviously, if we are more defensively minded, which I think is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, given the fact we've got the out ball of Casper Hu, we've got the pace of Chineki, Hassan, Yang, Duran, etc. We have got players with pretty good engines and endurance, people like Nygren, McGregor, Mika Bauer, I thought was really quite impressive for his first game at Celtic Park. I thought he actually got better and better the longer he was on. Did seem to get a wee minor knock, as did Colby Donovan, but I would expect they'll both be fully fit for next Tuesday. Just wondering if anybody not wishing to throw a dampener on things, but were there any sort of negative things that people negative features from yesterday's game? For me, there was. For me, there was no real negatives other than the possibility of Bauer and Donovan having injuries. Would obviously leave us a wee bit weak at the right back position, because obviously Johnson's out for definite for the game against LASK. If Colby Donovan was injured as well, which he did appear to have a minor knock, which he was trying to run off. That would just leave us just with Anthony Ralston at right back. In technical terms, we could go to a five at the back, 3 centre backs. Dane Murray has occasionally played at right back. Another option Celtic have used in the past at right back was Rio Atati. He played a couple of times for Celtic at right back. He actually scored a couple of goals. I can't remember who the opponents were in that game, but Rio Atati also is technically an option at right back if we were really struggling for injuries and stuff. Plunge 274. CCV needs to stop doing his tortoise impression. Our defence was too high. We need to be fully on it next week, as they will definitely score. I think from my own thought regarding that's a really good point, actually. But my own thought was the reason that we were playing quite high is because we were trying to score. We were trying to push forward and trying to sort of cut down the space in midfield and try and push LASK further and further back. I think the option this time when we're playing away from home is we'll be able to play that bit deeper, which will mean there'll be less space behind us. So I think because we won't be going out all out attack for goals, that thing that you're raising might not be the factor. Michael McCafferty saying, "Are you going to do the game live next week? By any chance?" I have to say that if anybody ever listened to me supporting a game of football, the language level, the swearing, the horrible things I might say, I don't think it would be very fit for a live stream. So I wasn't planning doing a live stream for next Tuesday's game. As I've said on previous live streams, it is something I'm looking to expand the live streams next year. Once we get into 2027, I'm looking to do more live streams, probably 2 live streams a week, one of which might well be a watch along thing. But at this point, I'm still making plans and doing the research about how to expand my live stream package in terms of what's available through my computer. Pat Santers, clubs should now spend 40 million, which would come from Champions League millions, and still not touching their millions at that 4.5 extra million brought through with sales. Yep. One of the stories that I mentioned in the video that I uploaded an hour or two ago is that the theory with Gineitis of Torino is that would be a fee that they would pay when they do actually have that £40 million in the bank. Obviously, I don't think personally it's a good idea to spend £40 million when you haven't got that £40 million guaranteed to come into your bank account. I would think it's unlikely Celtic will blow a 3-0 lead away from home in LASK, but they proved yesterday that they actually do have a lot of ability. They have a goal-scoring ability. They are quite weak at the back. But I don't think Celtic should spend £40 million or spend money that they haven't actually got in the bank. It's something, obviously, that's caused lots of other clubs major problems, spending money they haven't got. One example is Torino themselves. They're £20 million in debt. If they don't pay off that £20 million in debt this season, they'll get deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. So that's one of the reasons that they're putting Gineitis up for sale, is because they've spent money they didn't have to try and get higher up into the Serie A division. So they're having to sort of control things. Michael McCaffrey saying Scales and Vickers were bad. Surely we could do better. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers did a pretty good job. He made mistakes, as did Donovan, as did Tierney, as did Trusty, as did every player on the pitch made mistakes. I thought Carter-Vickers got better and better as the game went on. I think he made some nice tackles, interceptions. He wasn't perfect, but I think he's getting better and better. I thought Austin Trusty was possibly Celtic's best defender. He also made one mistake as well. Michael Ross, as I say, I have thought about doing watch-alongs. One of my concerns is that I might not enjoy doing watch-alongs because I would be continually trying to mind my P's and Q's and swear words and saying things that would be potentially offensive. However, as I said, it is something I am planning to do, to go to 2 live streams a week next year in 2027. But that will require a wee bit of an upgrade in terms of the live stream computer package that I've got, and it will require a wee bit of an upgrade in terms of computers and cameras and microphones and stuff as well. So that's all something that I'm planning for after Christmas and after New Year, so the early part of 2027. So maybe if all goes well for Celtic, we're in the Champions League, we're getting into the last game or two of the Champions League group stage, maybe then I could start to look at doing watch-alongs. Pat Center's central defenders, we like good ones, plus need right back and midfielder. I think we definitely need a defensive midfielder, one who can drop into defence and push forward into the midfield. Celtic are, in theory, or thought to be deep in negotiations for this player, Nico Sigur, a player we've talked about before. 22-year-old Canadian player playing in Croatia for Hajduk Split, teammate internationally for Alsa Johnston. Plays defensive midfielder half the time, right back half the time, so he ticks lots and lots of boxes. Thought to be available probably for about $4 million. He apparently wants to come to Celtic. Celtic apparently wants him, and there have been quite a lot of stories suggesting that deal is well down the line. Good passer, good long ball passer, which could be really useful if we try and use Hassan and Gineitis and Yang and Duran and Ho up front. Crossing's not great, but very good in terms of his defensive ratings, tackling, interceptions, blocks, clearances, etc. Very good at winning the ball back in defence in the midfield, and very, very low in terms of his error. Only one error in 29 games last season in the Croatian league. So he clearly is a player that Celtic are thought to be wanting. But I think certainly depending on what happens with Alsa Johnston, I would guess he's not going to go anywhere now that he's injured. I doubt that any team's going to want to buy him. before the end of the window, which is right at the start of September. So I suspect that the plan is that he's going to be back playing for Celtic around about the middle of September, maybe around about the time of the first or the second Rangers match that's coming up. Good evening to you as well, Sligo Boy. Evening all to you. Yes. So we are Celtic 56. Celtic are an absolute nightmare for other teams. We've got our mojo back, great performance and result. We have to defend galore next week for the spot in the Champions League. Yeah, I think all those are very good points. I think Celtic rode their luck a little bit. We got 2 or 3 very good saves out of Viljami Sinisalo. We actually cut back down how many shots LASK got in the box. They actually shot quite a lot from outside the box. Admittedly, they did get 2 or 3 shots in the box. As Sinisalo made a couple of great saves. They had 2 goals disallowed. But I thought in the second half we did a better job of keeping them outside the box, cutting down their chances in the box. Anton Rodgers left foot. I think Celtic has got a budget of what they're going to spend up to what happens next Tuesday, and I think that will open up another 20 million or whatever in terms of their transfer budget after that. So I do think they've got an initial list of another 2 or 3 players, potentially players like Sigur, Balázs Toth, the goalkeeper. Obviously, loan fees, etc., for bringing in Emanello, the Chelsea left back loan player. So I do think they will be spending money prior to next Tuesday, or they'll have players lined up to come in with the money that we've already got, the sales of other players, etc., plus their own transfer kitty. Hi David, top result. Heard now that Celtic made 4.5 million after all the sales out and players brought into the club, so clubs richer than before they purchased anybody. Well, we spent 12 million on Ho. We will be spending 12 million on Ho, 6 million on Duran, because both of them have, assuming that we qualify for the Champions League in 6 days' time, because for both of them there's a clause that upgrades their transfer fee by another million or so if we do Champions League qualify. And the same way for Hassan. That was 6 million or 7 million rising to 9. Mika Bauer's 4 and a bit rising to 6. So we have spent, obviously we got 22 or 25 for Engels. We got 10 for Maeda. We got 3 or 4 for Luis Palma. A couple of million for Navroki. 1 million for Inamura. So we have made some money in selling players, and we've spent quite a bit of money. And with the 4 deals that were brought in, that all of them there was a 1 million upgrade for qualifying for the Champions League. So Gary Sutherland, hello David and all. Do you think we've done enough to get through to the group stages? Think we will score over there, so hopefully we've done the job at Paradise. Yes, I think obviously LASK have got to come out all guns blazing in the first half hour or so. I think if we can defend deeper and repel them, we've got every chance of hitting them on the counter-attack. I think we proved with the 3rd goal that we can go from one end of the pitch to the other end of the pitch really well. We did the same thing against Dundee United actually 3 or 4 times in the game the previous weekend. Pat Santers, I have been all my life fairly financially sensible and not spending money I didn't have. So I've never been a great one for having overdrafts or spending money that I haven't got in, etc. So yes, maybe I am financially cautious. Yeah. So Gary Sutherland, yes, I think Celtic, all things being equal, have done enough to get through, but it's going to take a good performance. It's going to take some really good defending over in Austria, and I think the longer we can hold them out, the more and more they're going to be open at the back. They were already quite open at the back, even though they were away from home. So Hugh Jamieson, it will be a challenge in Austria, but fortunately Martin will set Celtic out in a nuanced way, tighten defence, but with a big counter-attack threat. Yes, it could well be quite similar to the way that we played against Feyenoord Rotterdam under Martin O'Neill, defending well, packing midfield, hitting them on the break, taking our chances. We did a good job at winning 1-0 away from home against in Stuttgart. Another good defensive performance. So yes, I think O'Neill will set the team up right. I think he'll have the right tactics, the right formation, assuming that we have our full squad that was available for the game yesterday, i.e. Bauer's fit and that Donovan's fit. I think we could easily hold on and then start scoring goals as they become more and more desperate to attacks. Kenneth Todd, we've got money, speculate to accumulate. Champions League could bring more than 40 million dependent. Yes, all I was saying is maybe I think what Celtic should do is spend the money they've got at the moment, and then if they do have Champions League qualification, that does open up probably another 10, 15, 20 million into their bank balance for adding more players. I also do think that if we are definitely in the Champions League, that will attract one or two players who may have been sceptical about coming to play in Scotland, because I think the attraction of playing Champions League football is quite a big attraction for players. And I think that was one of the problems that at the end of last year's transfer window was we'd failed to qualify. Would fail to qualify, and so I think players like Kasper Dolberg, just for an example, who was thinking about coming to Celtic, then chose to go to play for Ajax instead. Michael Ross, what is your favourite swear word? Well, I can't say what my favourite swear word would be, because I believe in keeping these live streams family friendly. Believe in not triggering, getting bad rows from YouTube for too many swear words on the channel. David Stocker, good question. How many players do I think, or we think, obviously open it to the audience, in terms of, I think Celtic will be bringing in another midfielder or two. So I think the option of having a defensive midfielder or a utility midfielder like Nico Sugar, the Canadian playing in Croatia, I think he's a really good option. Covers right back, which could be important for us. Covers defensive midfield, can push forward into normal midfield. I think he's a good option for Celtic. Do think we're going to be bringing in a backup goalkeeper to back up Viliami Sinisalo. I thought Sinisalo had a really, really good game yesterday. Made several saves that kept us in the game at 1-0 and at 2-0. But we do need to have a proper experience, a good quality backup goalkeeper. It looks like O'Neill is very, very keen to bring the American English player playing for Chelsea, Landon Emanalo, in at left back. I think we'll get that a player in. So basically, I'm thinking a backup goalkeeper, a left back, and a utility midfielder. who can also play as a defender and a more conventional midfielder. Quite a lot of rumours saying that Celtic also are in the market for another wide player. That would leave us with rather a lot of wide players, assuming that Jota comes back to fitness in October, November, as is hoped and is expected now. Yep. Alistair Johnson certainly at the moment is rather injury prone, unfortunately. He was due a scan today. Haven't heard what the result of that scan was. We'll come back to talking about Alistair Johnson in a wee while. Hugh Jameson, Sigur would be a great addition. Great from Celtics last night, but midfield vulnerable through being too lightweight. I think certainly having somebody who is a bit of a midfield enforcer, Nico Sigur is, as I said, from all his ratings from Croatian football, is a player that can win balls, fight for balls, etc., tackles, intercepts, blocks, tracks runners, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, good passer as well. So I think he would be a very good option. The stories are that he's keen to come to Celtic, that one of the reasons he's keen to come to Celtic is the fact that Alistair Johnson's already here. Well, Pat Santers, Johnson has certainly last season he missed 3/4 of the season. He missed in previous seasons a few games here and there. But certainly since he got that first hamstring injury in one of the early European games, I think it was the first leg against Kira Almaty. Ever since then, he's really struggled for fitness. The presumption is that the injury he's got now is another hamstring tear, but we'll find out when we get the scan results, probably tomorrow. The pen is Sligo Boy is saying the pen's matching the sword. Ironically, anagram of sword is words. Well, yep, that's very good philosophy. Just try and catch up with some of these comments. Well, Pat Santers, the only person has said, well, Martin O'Neill said in his press conference, I think it was last week, that Johnson was expected to be back in mid-September. The only person I've heard say that it's going to be longer than that since then is one of the Clyde Sports players who's ex-Rangers and ex-Motherwell. So not really a very good authority about what's happening at Celtic. So we'll find out tomorrow. Presumably what Johnson's scan showed. Hello to you, Kieran Allen. Yes, they haven't been following the Rangers game since halftime. So. Punch 274. Johnson will leave in January. He wants to go to the EPL. I haven't actually seen anything in the press, in any interviews, etc. That again, there have been lots of stories from supposed Celtic insiders, but haven't actually seen Alistair Johnson say that he wants to go and play in England or in a bigger league. Unlike Arnie Engels, unlike Dyson Maida, unlike Kyogo, unlike Matt O'Reilly, unlike Christopher Ayer, Ryan Christie, etc., he hasn't actually said in public, in an interview or a press conference or whatever, what he wants to do. So now it may be the case. On previous times, he has talked about his lifelong love of Celtic. He's been supporting Celtic all these days. His family are all Celtic supporters, etc. I don't know. J7, hey David and chat. Yep. Michael Rossi, AJ can go. He's too injury prone. Well, up until last season, I didn't think he was particularly injury prone. He had some ankle problems. He missed a few games with that. Admittedly, he did miss 3/4 of last season with recurring hamstring problems, needing an operation. So. Great. Hugh Jameson, big Casper played an invaluable role last night. Very Sutton-like, the way he occupied the defence. 1 fouls, was an option for passes from midfield. I thought he played really, really well. Given the fact he didn't score any goals, which is his primary role, but he did a brilliant job, as you're saying, winning the ball, buying fouls on the halfway line, which allowed Celtic to get out, allowed the pressure to lessen. His link-up play was throughout the game was great. 2 or 3 times he laid the ball off for Nygren and Duran to shoot for goal. He forced the defender into heading the ball straight to Duran. He laid the ball off brilliantly to start to transfer Trusty's pass out to the wide to Nygren to Duran, back to Nygren to Duran to score the 3rd goals. So yes, completely, and I think that's why he could be a massively big asset for Celtic across in Austria. If we are having to absorb a lot of pressure. Well, Pat Santers, nobody knows what Celtic's financial position is until the financial figures officially come out in April. There will be preliminary figures a few months before that, but we don't know what Celtic's actual financial position is as of now. We don't know what their outgoings have been. We don't know what all their other financial commitments are. We don't know what the wage budget currently is at Celtic. We do know that the wage budget has been going up and up and up and up at Celtic for players and for non-players. So we do know we're paying £5 million more in wages than any other team in Scotland. And it's gone up by a couple of million every year, year after year after year at Celtic. So we don't know what Celtic's financial position. I suspect it's actually very, 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 very strong. When the last financial figures were released, Celtic had about £60 million in the bank. But part of that was a contingency against the fact they hadn't been in the Champions League before, so they'd had to adapt their budget because of payments and monies and outgoings that were already committed to, that were going to be happening in this the 6 months from April through to October. J7, Sigur playing right back for Hauk Split tonight. They're 2-1 up. Yes, there was stories that that Sigur was going to be playing for Hauk Split. Hauk Split apparently are desperate for money as well. They're in big debt as well. So both Hauk Split, who've got Sigur, and Torino, who've got Gineitis, are both massively in debt from overspending on transfers and contracts and stuff. And so they're both in a position to sell. I think it's one of the benefits of Celtic having money also in the bank is we're never under an obligation to sell players we don't want to leave. Daizen wanted to leave. We sold him. Arnie Engels was desperate to leave. Even had he been at the club last night, he apparently was refusing to play in the game against LASK because he was so dead set on getting his move down south. So in the past, we have resisted initial bids for Kyogo and Daizen Maeda and Matt O'Reilly and so on and so on and so on. So we have actually been able to delay lots of transfers previously to keep players at the club, such as keeping Engels at the club 6 months longer. We kept Kuhn at the club 6 months longer. So there are benefits to having money in the bank. It does give you the security not to have to accept bids like Hauk Split are going to do and Torino are going to do with several of their best players. Well, as I said, plunge 274. The official financial figures, which if you release incorrect financial figures in your financial report, you then get done for under financial laws for defrauding the shareholders, defrauding the stock market, defrauding investors, etc. So 60 million pounds in the bank is what Celtic had officially as of their last financial figures. Yes, David Stocker, the game is cancelled this weekend. I think all the Scottish teams who are in Europe yesterday and today, I think all of them have got their games cancelled on Saturday and Sunday, which I think is a really good move. Obviously, it means we won't have any further injuries. It gives Bauer and Donovan, if they have got minor knocks, a full ability to get over those. Kieran Allen, Celtic scored over there, tied over. Yep, I think it's a really good point. I think if Celtic were to score a goal, that would then LASK would have to score 4 goals to get it to go to extra time, 5 goals to win on the night. So I do think a goal in Austria would be a very, very strong indicator that Celtic will be going through. Champions 56, absolutely loving the new O'Neill era treble incoming. I think that's a really good point of view. I have I predicted last season that Celtic would get a double or a treble. In the end, I was right. We got a double. I think we're on course, given the relative strengths of the teams and squads in Scotland. I think we're on the course for a double or treble again this season. Obviously, in things like League Cups and Scottish Cups, you can get dodgy results, dodgy decisions. You get drawn away from home again, as is the case in the League Cup. So the next game Celtic have got in the League Cup, obviously, probably is going to be their hardest game of this League Cup campaign. I don't see Celtic under Martin O'Neill, if we did get to the final in the League Cup, making the same mistakes that we did under Wilfred Nancy. Penny 840. I'm confident we score at least 1 in the away game. Should be enough. Yep, I think. Yep, I'm confident that Celtic have got the players in the team to score goals, particularly Ho, Duran, Nygren. I thought Mika Bauer played well. I thought he did a good job of taking some of the pressure off of Cal McGregor. I thought, given the fact that he's only had a week or so of training with these players, that he's fitted in really well into the team. He's obviously not the same sort of player as Arnie Engels, but I thought he made a big contribution. Really tidy midfielder. He's always available as a ball for a pass. Keeps things fairly nice and simple. Links the play up well. Passes quickly. And from his stats in German football, is for a player who's 5'8", he's remarkably good at winning the ball back in defence, in midfield and in defence. Sorry, just adjusting the lights there. J7, we don't want to spend too much, or we'll end up like the Loudon Travan, or we'll end up like Rangers, or we'll end up like Hearts, or we'll end up like so many other football teams in the world who go bankrupt, or who get into such deep financial problems that they end up having to sell player after player after player, as is the case, as I said, for Hajduk Split, as is the case for Torino, as is the case for lots and lots of clubs around the world. They spend money they haven't got. They go into deep financial problems. Most of them in the end get bailed out, as was the case for Rangers, as is the case for most big football clubs. They get a second, third, fourth chance. But there are teams like Leicester, Southampton, as two good examples of clubs who've gone bankrupt once before, gone bankrupt a second time. A lot of stories suggesting that Rangers are in financial problems again. Pat McLaughlin, good evening to you. Lovely to have you on. Kieran Allen, I think we do need a quality midfielder. I would love to see Celtic signing at least 2 more midfielders, and that way we'd have the luxury of giving Callum McGregor a few games off. We would have the luxury of then maybe trying out a player like Mika Bauer deeper, or if we did buy Gineitis, trying him in a deeper position. The good thing about Gineitis is he's primarily a central midfielder, but does drop back happily into the defensive midfielder role too. He's at 6'3". He's actually a much bigger player than Celtic have got in midfield. Kieran Allen, transfer record 14 million. There is a lot of different speculation regarding how much Gineitis would need. Most estimates are it would be a basic early 6 to 8 million pound basic fee, and another 2 to 4 million added on top of that in add-on clauses, etc. And obviously pretty reasonable big wages as well, with them coming from Italian football. Clashman Numpty, great to have you on as well. Evening to you, Clashman Numpty. Yes, as I said on previous live streams, I think the comments that Dermot Desmond's son made at the last AGM were completely unacceptable. They were very, very ill-advised. I think it caused more and more division. It caused more and more anger. His speech, etc., should have been calming things down. Instead, it just made things 3, 4, 5 times worse. And it was quite remarkable that in the end, Celtic all came back together at the end of the season. I think large part of that was the unity that people like O'Neill, Maloney, McGregor, etc. managed to get back into the squad and restored the faith of the crowd to an extent. Inequality midfielder turns all these players' value up a notch after this season. I think we're bored we'll see that. Yeah. One of the difficulties also is with some of the players that we've bought, such as Miko Bauer and Hassim Hassan, and for the sake, but actually Casper Hu and Camilo Duran. In the first case with Camilo Duran and for Casper Hu, and there was no obligation for their clubs to sell them. Real Oviedo didn't want to sell Hassim Hassan at this point. Paderborn didn't want to sell Mika Bauer. So those actually were quite difficult deals to negotiate because all 4 clubs didn't want to sell their player at that time, which is why it took a bit longer to get it all through. Quite a lot of the deals that Rangers, Hearts, etc. have managed to negotiate are being teams who wanted to offload players rather than players that were that they had to kind of prize away from those clubs. There were players that the selling clubs were happy to sell. Pat Santers, 2 goals LASK scored just offside. Yep, that's true. They were offside, but they were offside. You can't count goals that are offside. And it's like saying, oh, well, Viljami Sinisalo made 8 saves, 3 or 4 of which were very good. Well, yes, so that's what happened. Goalkeepers are supposed to save it. Defenders are supposed to defend and get attackers to go offside. Because they've got their defensive lines right. So one could argue that because Celtic had their defensive line right for the first offside goal and the second offside goal, those players were caught offside because the defenders had got their line right and they were playing together as a back 4. But games are won and lost, sometimes with a wee bit of luck here and there. You think about Dundee United hitting the post and the bar 4 or 5 times, but there have been plenty of games last season where Celtic hit the post, hit the bar, missed narrowly, or goalkeepers had the most amazing games. So That's unfortunate. Football. That's fortunately or unfortunately football. But I take your point. LASK are a dangerous side. Are a dangerous side. They've got players that can score goals. They can move the ball very quickly. However, I do think Celtic will be better sorted out and better tactically in this game, partly because O'Neill and Maloney will have more evidence to directly work off, but also they'll have the luxury of being able to be more defensive in the game on Tuesday than they were last night, because obviously they had to get goals last night, Celtic. They couldn't afford not to have a lead of a goal or two going into the second leg. So Celtic had to attack, which meant we were a bit more open at the back. Clashman up to one holding midfielder, left back, goalkeeper, perhaps another centre half to cover CCV. We have more wingers than the Brazilian Air Force. I agree with you on that one, especially given the fact that Jota does seem to have come back into training quicker and better than expected. He's actually now working with the ball, which is, I think, from what people have been saying, is actually ahead of schedule. They weren't really planning for him to be doing ball skills and so on at this point. So he does appear to be ahead of schedule in terms of what was initially planned. But I do agree, holding midfielder, Nico Sigur seems to be the one that we're going for. The other player that we're going for, Gineitis, is can play defensive midfield, central midfield, attacking midfield. He's a bigger player than Nico Sigur. He's a bigger player than Celtic have got in midfield, so he could equally play the holding midfielder role. We definitely need a left back. O'Neill seems very keen on this Chelsea left back, 18, 19-year-old, who's half English, half American. He apparently has a minor injury, but should be coming to Celtic on loan in the next week to 10 days. So the story said earlier today. I think another centre half would be a really good idea. Or if we had a sort of centre half who also plays defensive midfield. So I think maybe we had obviously Nir Beatom is an example of a player who could both double up as a centre back and a defensive midfielder. Tomoki Iwata also played both those positions until Rodgers got rid of him. There are a lot of rumours that Celtic are talking about moving to a three at the back, which would, and given the fact that Tierney can play as a left centre back, Johnson can play as a right centre back. Donovan's also at 6 foot tall, big enough to play as a right centre back in a back three. So we have actually got quite a lot of options if O'Neill does go to a 3-5-2 as is being rumoured. We have got the players who can play wing back as well. And Yang has proven he's able to track back. Hassan actually was tracking back quite nicely as well at the end of yesterday's game. Their right back will be defending. I think that neither Jorgensen on the right or Bello on the left are particularly good defenders. They work really well as midfielders rather than defenders, and work more better as a midfielder rather than working in the final third. So. Pat Sanders, who wants players no matter if out for half the season like Johnson and Vickers? Yes. So last season, you're entirely right. Johnston missed 3/4 of the season. Carter Vickers missed about 90% of the season. Carter Vickers had been particularly injury prone before. Johnson had played a lot of games for Celtic before that. He's not, up until last season, he wasn't particularly injury prone in my estimation. Clashman Umpty, Hassan only had a few touches, but he looked quality. Yes, I think that you're entirely right there. Came on with about 10 minutes to go. He clearly has got tons and tons of pace. He's good on the ball. He's quite strong on the ball as well. He was really quite intelligent on 2 or 3 occasions in deep in the LASK corner area, getting throw-ins, getting corner kicks and stuff as well. So I think he is a player. Once we get him fully fit and fully match fit, he's going to be a big asset to Celtic. Cashman did say I wasn't Donovan. I'm a big fan of Colby Donovan, but other people definitely aren't. Same way that I'm a big fan of Viliami Sinisalo, which other people aren't. I thought Donovan did incredibly well for a young man of 19, 20 years old. He coped really, really well. He defended well. I thought he was very sensible and calm on the ball. He cleared his lines when required. He made the pass when required. He was calm on the ball. Once he received it, he didn't panic when he got the ball under a bit of pressure. I thought Donovan defended really well. I also quite like the fact he's quite physical. He's about 6 foot tall. He's pretty good in the air for a fullback. I think we've got a really good player coming through with him. Kieran Allen, we scored in Austria. It's tie over. I think we do that and more. I think Celtic has definitely got a goal in them in the second leg. And I think a goal in the second leg will pretty much kill the tie off, particularly if that's nice and early. Pat Santers, Martin O'Neill should be handed 40 million to spend on defence and midfielders, and he should pick who to go for. This done, then Celtic would be a tough side. Well, my understanding is that Martin O'Neill is getting the sorts of players he wanted. He is the one partly who is going through all the scouting and all the recruitment. He's working with primarily Sean Maloney and the recruitment team and the scouting team, and he and Maloney are guiding who comes in, who doesn't come in, the guiding who people are going for. Reportedly, Martin O'Neill is happy with his centre-back options. I would like Celtic to add another person simply because of the fact that Tierney's a bit dodgy in terms of injury. Carter Vickers clearly has been dodgy with injuries. Alison Johnson this season has been, and last season, dodgy with injuries. Trusty's had some foot problems, although that seems to have settled down. So I do agree. I think Celtic should actually be expanding and having another experienced, good quality defender. But if one believes some of the stories, O'Neill is getting what he wants, i.e. Celtic are going for the players that O'Neill has greenlit and has earmarked and targeted. Celtic can obviously always get players in that they want to get because teams don't sell them, or the player doesn't want to come and play for Celtic or come and play in Scotland. It's not as simply as playing Championship Manager or the FIFA games on the Xbox or Nintendo or whatever, where you just get to buy players. The reality is players don't always want to come and play in Pat Santers, it's me. As I said, all we can do is we can read the stories and weigh them up and think, is that likely or unlikely? And if Martin O'Neill is saying something in public, recorded in interviews, press conferences, in the press, etc., I would tend to believe what he is saying. And that's roughly what he's been saying, and that's been backed up by other people who claim to be insiders at Celtic. But all we can do is we can read the stories and believe what we want to believe and disbelieve what we want to disbelieve. And at the moment, we don't know what's true, what's not true, because it's all just rumours and gossip. David Stalker, Sigur a bargain for 3 million. Some uncertainty whether it's 3 million, 4 million. Either way, I think it's a really good price for a player of his ability. 22 years old, 22 caps for Canada, played in the World Cup just recently. He's played in the American Cup of Nations again, good high quality tournament, the Copa America. 4 years in Croatian football for one of the best teams in Croatia. There's an awful lot of positives to Nico Sigur. He is Canadian, so coming into Scotland, less of a culture shock. Obviously, not going to be any kind of language barrier for him as well. I think there's a lot of positives for him coming in. Wyoming CSC, great to have you on. What a performance, a few more additions, and it could be a strong side. I completely, totally agree. That if one believes the stories, there are 2 or 3 players lined up to come in the next 10 days or so. The stories from quite a lot of other sources are that Celtic has an additional player or 2 earmarked to be brought in once, whatever you want to call it, we guarantee ourselves Champions League football for the season. And as I said earlier on, I think once you're in the Champions League, that does actually opens up the checkbook, obviously, at Celtic's end, but also does open up the number of players who will want to come and play for Celtic and come and play in Scotland, which at the moment is a less attractive country to come and play in than it used to be. Kenneth Todd, as I said earlier on, the official amount of money that was in Celtic's bank when it was last announced, which was April of 2026, so that's what 4 months ago, was £67 million was Celtic's positive bank balance. But you're quite right, assets, etc. Since that time, we have sold about £40 million worth of players with Palma, Navrocki, Inamura, Engels, and Maeda. So we have spent what's 18, 27, 33. We spent 33 million roughly on the 4 players were brought in if we add on the clauses that are part of those deals. And reportedly for all 4 of the players brought in, there was about a £1 million additional payment if Celtic qualified for the Champions League. So great to have had you on, Michael McCafferty. Always great chatting to you through the comment section with the videos and stuff, and great that you were able to join the live stream for an hour or so. That was brilliant. Catch up with you again. I'm sorry. I apologise, Clash Mounty. I don't intend ever to be bragging. I'm not sure when I was bragging, but if people think I was bragging, I don't intentionally brag. I just try and open my mouth and say what I'm thinking, and try and be true to myself and true to what I think. And if people like what I say, that's great. If they don't like what I say, that's also great. I'm very happy to chat, debate, share opinions, etc. Okay, Pat Sanders, if you know better, that's great. All I'm going on was what the figures that Celtic announced to the stock market, and it's illegal to give false financial reports to the stock market, with Celtic being a company listed on the stock exchange. You have to give true financial figures, same way that Marks and Spencers or Sainsbury's or I don't know, whomever else, Arnold Clark, whomever else, have to release their proper financial figures. So it said £67 million in the bank in the last financial figures. I have seen people saying 100 million in the bank continuously, but that doesn't appear to be based on the actual financial figures legally announced to the stock exchange. Hail to you as well. Smell the glove. Next Tuesday out the way. I think that's the obviously is going to be a wee bit of nervousness and tension, etc. leading up to the game on Tuesday. I was very nervous and apprehensive about watching the game yesterday on television in the evening. Obviously didn't start brilliant. Conceding an offside goal in 30 seconds. They then had another great chance in the second minute. It took Celtic a bit of time to get going. However, we had a couple of half chances through Duran. We eventually got the first goal through Nygren, got a second goal through Duran. Sinisalo made several good saves. Great to have you on, Milky Moot. Great to have you on, Alison Timpany as well. I think the Rangers people who were making a bit of a scene have kind of disappeared, I think. Celtic Boy, or J Celtic Boy, we've put ourselves in the best position possible to qualify now with the deficit achieved. Took years of all of that. Completely agree. When it was 0-0 and when we were 1-0 up, and even when we were 2-1 up, I had this horrible feeling that something bad was going to happen. Happily, we generally defended pretty well in the second half. Sinisalo made a couple of good saves in the second half, and we forced them more and more into long shots. Wyoming CSE, where did this good recruitment come from? Is O'Neill scouting the players? Well, my understanding is that in January, O'Neill and Maloney sat down with the scouting people and the recruitment people and said, these are players that we would like you to scout over the next 6 months. I think the idea was these would be players that whoever became the manager in June, July of this year would then be able to say, well, here are 40 reports for these players earmarked by Maloney and O'Neill in January. So reportedly, Duran is a player that Celtic have been watching for 6 months. Nico Sigur is a player Celtic have been watching for 6 months. Casper Hu, a player that Celtic have been watching for about a year. We've made inquiries for Casper Hu in the past. So the story is that Maloney and O'Neill are very strong influences in terms of telling the scouting people and the recruitment people who to go for. Then the scouting people scout them. The recruiting people then start contacting agents and football clubs to see whether there's a willingness to come and play for Celtic, etc. Yes, the answer to your question, Wyoming CSC, is yes. I think it's because O'Neill and Maloney are taking a very strong influence in terms of scouting and recruitment, much stronger than Rodgers did for his 2 and a bit years, and probably about as strong as Ange Postecoglou did in his couple of years at Celtic. Postecoglou was also worked very, very closely with scouting and recruitment, much closer than Rodgers did, apparently. Sorry, just trying to catch up. So, hopefully the Amanda person who's been causing a lot of you upset, hopefully shouldn't cause any more problems. Hopefully her comments, etc., will just disappear from the live stream now. Yep, smell the glove. You say, I want a few transfer buttons ready to push next Wednesday when we get past LASK. Yes. So, my understanding is that Celtic are deep in negotiations with Nico Sigur. That's a deal that people think might go through that bit quicker than next midweek. Depending on who you believe regarding Balázs Toth, the Hungarian international goalkeeper for Blackburn. Some people say that deal's well down the line. Some saying it's still on hold. The Gineitis deal appears to be on hold, pending getting into the Champions League group stage. It was interesting that there were stories re-emerging that Celtic are looking again at the Girona winger Asprilla. He would be quite a costly transfer fee, up to maybe 14 to 16 million pounds. Not sure we need yet another wide player, but maybe that there is a plan to move Gineitis or somebody else on. So yes, my understanding, smell the glove, is there are a few names lined up to be players we're going to go for when we qualify for the Champions League, assuming that we qualify for the Champions League. Other people are saying that Celtic should spend this £40 million of Champions League money before they actually get it. I think they should wait till they've got that money promised to them and then start spending it. All the rules and regulations regarding transfers, wages, how much percentage of your revenue can get paid for in terms of contracts and salaries and agents' fees and transfer fees and stuff is getting more and more complicated. Obviously, there's lots and lots of English teams getting into a lot of problems at the moment, especially. Yep, Paul McGuire, I think we do need to score over there. I think scoring over there would pretty much kill off the tie, because it would mean that LASK would have to score 4 goals to get it even to go to extra time. So I do agree. Official PN2BF. Cherney's coming. Hopefully not the Cherney that played for Rangers. I wasn't really that impressed with him. Pat Sanders' defence is not good. Dundee United ran them ragged. Well, yeah, they ran them so ragged that they scored no goals. So, yes, and there is the yes, the Dundee United hit the post, hit the bar, etc. But they did hit the post, they did hit the bar, i.e., the chances that the players had weren't gilt-edged chances. They were difficult chances to take. That's why they ended up hitting the post and hitting the bar. But I think Celtic's defence is decent, and it's going to get better and better the more these players play together. I think if we went through a season of having a very settled back 4 or 5 players, with a few players coming and going, one of the difficulties, I think, they were starting to settle down, and then Johnson got injured in the previous match. That's why things were a bit unsettled in the Dundee United match. But we'll find out. Well, Pat Sanders, I'm a Celtic fan as well, and I say facts that I think are facts. Saying the defence is rubbish is an opinion. It's a subjective, not objective. Winning the game 4-0, winning the game 3-0, is are all objective things, i.e., it actually happens. Giving an opinion, which is perfectly valid about the defence, is subjective. It's an opinion. Yep, Kieran Allen defence is no good, but won our last 11 games. Yes, and I think we beat LASK. I have to admit, I think LASK. I thought LASK were before I actually watched them playing last night, on the basis of having seen some highlights and stuff of their games in Austrian football and going through all their stats, all their player assessments, all their scouting reports, like I did for the preview video I did of the game. I thought LASK were going to be a good side, about the same level as Slovan Bratislava, about the same level as Utrecht, about the same level as Young Boys Bern. I think actually LASK was a step above those. I would put LASK up about the same level as Feyenoord or Michelin or Bruges, possibly even up near the level of Stuttgart. Although Stuttgart had better players, I thought their manager had maximised how well that bunch of players played together. He changed the way when he came in. LASK were actually in quite a lot of difficulties. He came in, changed the system, changed the formations, changed the tactics, and took them to winning the double last season. A wee bit similar to Celtic, LASK were lying third when the Austrian league broke into the post-split fixtures, and he won 6 games, drew 3, and lost 1 of the last 10 after the split in Austria. So I think he actually maximised how good that team is, and I thought they were better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be good. I think they're actually a very good side. And I think they're a team that could do really well in this year's Europa League, assuming that we put them away in a few days' time. So David Stocker, as far as I can see, the Amanda person should now be off the channel. All her comments and stuff should be off the channel. If I haven't seen any more of her comments recently, as they have. The system has excluded her comments. Just be a wee second. Yep, where are we? Paradise Huddle, great to have you on. Negrin's goal was class. Duran's goal, Duran's first goal, and Duran's second goal were all. I thought Celtic scored 3 brilliant goals yesterday. Real high quality in the players that scored them. Really good setup for all 3 goals, especially the third goal. I think the third goal was a brilliant bit of football, starting with Trusty in defence on his 18-yard line. He came into midfield. Lovely pass to Ho, great quick pass out to Negrin, out to Duran, back to Negrin, then to Duran, and a brilliant shot into the top right-hand corner. But the Negrin shot was such high quality as well. Celtic moving LASK from side to side to side. And I think also Celtic sometimes, when they are playing that way, get rather negative. A lot more of the passes were with pace and intent. And there weren't terribly many passes that weren't hit. I've Pat McLaughlin. I think I have blocked her, but Well, Alison Timpany, you're not banned on this channel. You're a very, very highly esteemed regular contributor. So you're always welcome on the David 67 channel. Jay's Celtic boy, very silky players. Jota hopefully comes back. And over the next few months, once he comes back in October, November, he gets back to the Jota that we had when he first came to Celtic, and the player he was starting to get into the starting to get back towards before he got injured last season. So if we're talking about the Amanda person, her comments have been excluded. So if there are other people that need excluded, I haven't seen who these people are. Everybody else is playing by the rules and stuff. But the Amanda person, she should be off the channel now, or actually as of about 5-10 minutes ago. And I can't see any of her comments anymore in the comment section. Alison Timpany, everybody's saying when Hassan is proper future, he'll blow our minds. Can't wait. Duran going to be a superstar. Need to keep him away from Camby Devlin, though. That's an animal. Yes, I think that is one way in which Rangers might take us on in the League Cup in however many weeks' time it is I think they might well try and mix it in midfield. They might well try and go after Ho and Duran and Hassan and so on. I think it's one of the few things that Rangers have got on their side is aggressive people who'll kick you. Interesting, smell the glove. You've boycotted TNT Sports since the K-Rat match. So glad chooses games on Amazon Prime. I wasn't aware it's on Amazon Prime. I completely agree with you about I thought a lot of TNT Sports coverage of Celtic matches over the last year or so has been pretty fourth rate, never mind second rate or third rate. It's been pretty fourth rate. And some really stupid comments and some stupid punditry. But Pat Santers, Donovan should be given his chance, guys. 1920, we're in Second World War fighting. Yes, I completely agree. I think Donovan is a player who is really going places. We've certainly still got him under contract for another season or two. I think he's somebody who probably deserves now a nice pay upgrade and a nice long 5-year contract. I think he is a player who is really going places, both in terms of Celtic, but also I think very soon, if he plays regular football, could well become Scotland's number one right back, or certainly in Scotland's world international squad. And reportedly, the new Scotland manager was at Celtic Park looking at primarily Tierney, but also having a look at Donovan as well. So the story goes. Yeah, Paul Maguire. That's my guesstimate. My estimation is 3 or 4 more in: goalkeeper, left back, midfielder, and a defensive midfielder or hybrid midfielder stroke defender like Nico Sugar, I think. Johnny Briggs, 3 players from doing damage this season in Europe. I think certainly a couple more really high-class players would, like Duran, like Ho, like Hassan, like Bauer, would really see us do well, I think. Also does give us a bit of depth for resting and rotating. does also give us obviously players to come off the bench to change the game. I think it's one of the benefits of potentially having Jota available in the second half of the season, is that will, if we're still in the Champions League, etc., does allow players like Hassan and so on to have a bit of a rest, because I do think Jota is a potentially superstar for Celtic if he ever gets back to full fitness. So, good question, Alison Timpany. How long is AG out for? According to Martin O'Neill in his press conference, which I think was last Friday, so 8 days ago, he said that Johnson would be out, or 6 days ago, that Johnson was going to be out till the middle of September. That was his and the medical people's estimation. Now, also, it was said yesterday in interviews that Alison Johnson was going for a medical today, Thursday. They haven't announced the results of Johnson's scan and review by a specialist, whether that implies that his injury is worse than expected. So the current estimation is he should be back in about 3 weeks' time, so the middle of September. There are other stories suggesting that he might be out another couple of weeks past that. But it would appear that, as I said, that he's getting a scan, or he's had a scan today, and then we'll know better how long he's going to be out for after that. Sligo Boy, I haven't heard anything saying that Johnson's going to be out till November, unless you've read a story somewhere else. But so Martin O'Neill, when he last said how long Johnson's out for, said it was going to be the middle of September. Yes, completely agree. YMC. Alison Johnson has he had an ankle problem that he played with for a long time. Eventually had surgery on that and missed a few games at the start of a couple of seasons ago. Last season he missed most of last season with recurring hamstring problems, and he's out again at the moment. Smell the glove. We've got Amazon Prime as well. I don't actually know how much Amazon TV channel costs. All these financial things are done by my wife. She's the one who organises all the direct debits and standing orders and stuff. So I just know we've got Amazon Prime, luckily, and we've got HBO Sports, which is what does TNT Sports. And by signing up for Amazon, you do get benefits in terms of deliveries and stuff. And with TNT Sports, used to be BT Sports, so we get our internet and stuff free from that. So Clashman Numpty, a wee bit controversial. Praise the board or whoever scouted these players, but net spend is 2 million in our favour. Imagine what we could do if we push the boat out a bit. As I said, I think there are thought to be another 2 or 3 signings coming in, come what may, and then thought to be another signing or 2 after the Champions League money is known to be coming in. At the moment, Celtic know they're either going to get 40 million plus by being in the Champions League or 20 million plus being in Europa League. But the stories are that the money for Sigur, Toth, Emanello, etc., is already already earmarked to go out the door, whether we qualify next Tuesday or don't. Sounds like the purchase for Gineitis of Torino might be one that's only going to be if we qualify. because it will be quite a bit more expensive than those first three. Although I do think with those first three, we're going to get really good quality players. Quite right, Chipper67. The two LASK strikers, Uzor and Adeniran, were both quite a handful. They have got a really good attacking midfielder in Christoph Lang as well. He's a relatively new player at the club. Also, Danek, the player from the Czech Republic, he's also quite an attacking, handy player as well. Not that we really saw that yesterday. He wasn't terribly effective yesterday. Nor was really their captain Horvath wasn't the usual influence. Celtic managed to get him sort of knocked out of the game a lot better as well. And I thought Celtic actually did a pretty good job of nullifying their central midfielders, who are reported to be one of their stronger points. And as I say, the more you make Bello and Jorgensen, their two wing-back full-backs, defend, the more and more exposed they are. Alison Timpany, you love AJ. He's not had much luck though. Alice Johnson has, ever since he joined the club from Major League Soccer a few seasons ago, he's always been one of my favourite players. I really like his attitude. He apparently is a tremendous leader on the training pitch and in the dressing room. Sounds like, from what Colby Donovan was saying, that Celtic, when Johnson's not around as part of the actual team unit, he's actually quite a big miss in terms of motivation and so on. I do try, Kenneth Todd, to say what I mean and mean what I say. It's not always that easy thinking and talking off the top of my head, whilst also trying to keep an eye on the comments. So I'm doing the best I can. So Plunge 274, David 67. Is that a homage to Lisbon, or is it your age? No, I was born in 1967. So I was born in July 1967. So obviously that's 2 months after Celtic had won in Lisbon. So David 67 comes from my birth year. So I am currently 59 years old. I'll be 60 next July. Good point, Johnny Briggs. Loved what you say. You loved last night. Back to being Celtic. I think that is 100% totally accurate. It felt like watching a European game at Celtic Park. It felt like the great games against Juventus and Barcelona, and it felt like when we thumped Slovan Bratislava 5-1, or beat Red Bull Leipzig, or all those other great European nights over the last, well, in my case, the last 50 odd years, but particularly looking back to the great results, beating Liverpool and Blackburn and so on, getting all the way to the UEFA Cup final 20 plus years ago. It felt like being a Celtic fan again. It felt like the whole club was together, the crowd, the players, etc., were all together. Thank you. Thank you, Milky Moo. Smell the glove. Repeat of Atalanta away from home a couple of years ago will do me on Tuesday. Yep, I think Celtic's had several over the years of good defensive away performances. I think we defended really well against Feyenoord Rotterdam. And the game that ended up as a 3-1 away from home win. We defended pretty well against Stuttgart and beating them 1-0 away from home. I thought, although we did let Bologna back into the game, it was with 10 men. I thought Celtic actually defended really pretty well. One of the difficulties in several of those games, such as the Atalanta game, was we didn't really have an out ball. In the Atalanta game, with a mixture of Kyogo up front and Adam Ida up front, and they weren't terribly good at holding the ball up to let Celtic get out of defence. That was been a problem. That won't be a problem, I don't think, on Tuesday, because we will have Casper Hu up front. Wyoming CSE, still work to do. Really don't want to be losing an early goal. I think that is entirely right. The last thing we need is a repeat of yesterday's game where they scored in the 30th second, in 30 seconds, but it was disallowed. And then they had a really good chance in the second minute. The other striker, Adeniran, this time hit it past the post. So what we really need to do is be sensible, set up fairly defensively at the start, compress the space, try and force LASK further and further out wide, because they're not very strong in terms of their wide positions. They rely on their two fullbacks who aren't that great playing as overlapping fullbacks. They're not as good as Johnston or Donovan or Tierney or Sirachi when we had Sirachi, etc. Yes, it's my birth year. Sorry. Comments are a wee bit behind. The comments are a wee bit behind where I am. Sorry. Great to have you on, Eddie C. Yeah, so Todd, Andre Flo. I think if all the various bits of the Casper Hu deal get finalised and added on, I think his deal would take it up to the same kind of level as the Todd Andre Flo deal. But I think it's quite encouraging that Celtic have broken their transfer record already this summer transfer window. If the stories are true, the deal for Gineitis might well be of a similar kind of level, bordering on £12 million as well. And so I was reading stories today of Celtic looking at bringing in this guy Espria from Girona, which might cost 14 to 16 million. I'm not sure we need yet another wide player unless we're looking to move existing players on, or whether we are looking to definitely go to the 3-5-2. Totally agree. Johnny Briggs, Duran's on a different planet. We're lucky to have him. Up until last year's Champions League, when he scored 5 goals for Karabag in their campaign, hadn't really seen Camilo Duran at all. He had played a bit in Colombia, played a bit in Brazil, played a bit in Portugal, and his career really took off last season for Karabag. I think getting him in for 5 million, rising to 6 million, was a very good deal. Quite a lot of people were quite sceptical about signing him. I thought he looked a really decent player from watching his highlights and watching his skill packages and watching him in the Champions League highlights from last season. But I have to say he's been better than I thought he was going to be. He's also settled down remarkably quickly, I think. Casper Hu settling down into Scottish football wasn't quite so unexpected, given the fact he was coming from Norway. He's a Danish player coming from Norway. Already other Scandinavian players at the club as well. Speaks excellent English. But Duran has settled into the team really, really well. His role in the team is getting more and more involved. It was great. I thought he came off his wing far more. He was involved much more in and around the box, as he proved with both these goals, he's a very, very talented player and a very good finisher. Yep, plunge 274. You're not allowed to hit the Celtic post. If you do, the defence is rotten, unbelievable. We've lost one goal. We could have lost more goals yesterday. We could have lost more goals against Dundee United, but we didn't. Same against Kilmarnock earlier on. Kilmarnock had a few chances. We made some saves. We made some blocks. We made some clearances. Playing against any professional team, the other team is going to have chances, particularly in a game where Celtic had to be quite a lot more open than they will have to be away from home. I think Celtic's also nowadays got the players to play different styles, different formations, different tactics. And I think Casper Hu up front is a massive bonus because of his ability to hold the ball up. Gavi Boy, I didn't read that actual comment or hear that actual comment, but you're saying interesting that Martin was talking about fitness levels still aren't there yet. I thought actually Celtic did a really pretty good job of playing right through to past the 90th minute in a game that was helter-skelter, end to end. Must have been a lot of energy expounded in that game. We did take off Kieran Tierney a bit early. I thought Scales came on and did a pretty good job at left back. I thought Hatate looked okay in midfield. He's lacking match fitness. Anthony Ralston lacking match fitness as well. So I think the fact that both those players could well be of use away from home in LASK coming off the bench, I think the half an hour or so that Ralston and Hatate got was good. Kieran Ireland defense is not rubbish. I think the defense is good, but it could be better. But also, I think part of what will make the defense better is having the same players or the same 5 players playing those 4 positions on a more regular basis. I think the more that those players play with Sinisalo behind them, the better the understanding gets for our defenders. We have had a bit of a chopping and changing at right back with Johnston being injured. We've had a bit of chopping and changing at left back, with Tierney being in sometimes and Scales being in sometimes, etc. But I think having Carter Vickers and Trusty as the defined first choice 2 centre backs is useful because they'll get more and more and more of an understanding. Lemming CSC, completely agree. We need more physicality in midfield. And although Bauer is 5'8", he does produce quite a lot of physicality, reportedly from his time in Germany. And both Nico Sigur, if he does come in, and Gineitis, the Lithuanian from Italy, if he comes in, they'll both definitely give us a lot of physicality in midfield. But it is something we've been lacking for quite a number of years, is a true sort of midfield enforcer. And for one reason or another, it was never something that Rodgers particularly seemed keen to bring into Celtic, was a proper enforcer defensive midfielder. he seemed keen to play Callum McGregor in that deeper role. Clashman Upty, did Trusty not score a goal last week? Yes, he scored a lovely flick header from a corner against Dundee United. Chipper 67, it's all. I am always happy to debate anything you like. I was just trying to think off the top of my head teams that Celtic had played recently. Braga obviously went deep into the Europa League last season. LASK are good. Yep, definitely. LASK are definitely good. Smell the glove. Whenever Trusty gets slagged off, usually comes back with a really good performance. I think Trusty's had this so far this season has made a few errors, but then everybody makes a few errors playing any sport or doing anything in life. You make errors. I think he's basically a good defender. I think he, being a natural left footer, playing alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's a natural right foot, I think that's a good thing. Clearly, Trusty and Scales have played together in America, together in the international side and in international squad gatherings with that lot as well. So I think that's a definite bonus as well. And I think the more that those two, so if that's the choice that O'Neill has come up with, is to have Trusty and Scales as his first two choice centre backs, with Scales and Murray as backups, with the options of playing a 3-5-2 with people like Tierney or Johnson, sometimes playing as wider centre backs. I think there's a lot of good options there. Slaggerboy had said we need 3-goal cushion. Now that we have it, and you've seen at LASK, we may need another goal. I think the chances of Celtic scoring a goal away from home are very, very high with the players that we've got, and also the fact that LASK are going to be starting the game on Tuesday 3 goals down. So, i.e., they're going to have to come out. They're going to have to come out and attack. And from the game last night, they clearly have a defence that's exposable. Lachman T says, I think Celtic will go through. If you can't qualify with a 3-goal lead, you don't deserve to go through. I think that's a perfectly reasonable point of view. Having got ourselves 3 goals up after the first leg, I'm sure some kind of statistical guru will be able to tell us what the chances of going through based on the last 2,000 results in Europe. But you're entirely right. A 3-goal lead. So it's like being 3 goals up at halftime in a game. You don't tend to lose terribly many games from being 3 up at halftime, which is in effect is where we're going to be. Also, one of the other factors which is in Celtic's favour, Austria is not a long flight. It's not a different sort of country in terms of temperature and so on, which was obviously a big factor, flying all the way to Kazakhstan. It was like 13 hours or something to get to Kazakhstan. Very, very different climate, heat, humidity, etc. The good thing about going to Austria is it's going to be very similar to playing in Scotland. I think someone was saying that Linz, which is where LASK are based, is a wee bit higher up in the sort of mountains, is a wee bit more of a higher altitude, but not like going to play in Colombia or Bolivia or any of the countries where playing at high altitude is a major factor. Actually, playing in Kherat in Kazakhstan last year was also reportedly there was quite a high altitude part to that as well. Good point, actually, Alison Timpany. Best thing that happened was them scoring that offside goal, kind of kicked our backsides into gear. Yep, I think there's a definite merit in that comment. Sligo Boys saying Celtic has only had a 3-0 overturn once, Benfica late 1960s, and we won that on a coin toss. All right, very good. Plunge 274. Can't see us keeping a clean sheet on Tuesday. They will score, but so will we. If I was asked to predict things at this point, I would go for a draw. But maybe look at I could certainly see the game across in Austria in Linz being a 2-2 draw. Thank you very much, Alison Timpany. And thanks very much, Pat Santers. Thank you for saying that my channel's the best. I'm not sure about that. It's an amateur effort, but at least I'm doing things from my heart, and the amount of positivity and feedback and opinions and respect, etc., and expertise of all the comments I get in the comment section on videos and through the live stream is amazing. I feel really lucky to get to do this live stream and to do the channel for that matter. And it's nice that the subscriber numbers are going up. It's nice that the viewer numbers are going up as well for the live streams. Yes, Kieran Allen, I think we did start a wee bit too far up. And that tends to be the case. Is I think Trusty and Scales and Carter Vickers are actually pretty good at readapting their positions once they get to know how a player is going to be playing. And so I think Celtic defended better in the second half than they had in the first half. And I do think when we play them away from home, we will have a natural starting position, will be deeper. So we won't have nearly as much space behind ourselves. I think I'm not quite sure. Chris Sutton seems to have a definite thing against Austin Trusty. I'm not quite sure why there's the animosity against Austin Trusty. I think he's a genuine player. I think he's a hard-working player. However, he doesn't seem to be everybody's cup of tea. Pat Santers, completely, totally agree. Hassan shall come very good. I think the amount of progress he made from his brief game against Dundee United, his brief time against LASK, he looked faster, he looked more direct, he looked much more confident. I think he's a player with his performances for Egypt, particularly in the Argentina game. If we can get that player playing for us on a regular basis, I think we've got a very, very good player who will be, once it gets tight, probably actually once it gets to the time to start playing the Champions League, assuming that we come through next Tuesday's game, I think he will be 100% ready to start contributing at his top levels for Celtic. Smell the glove. If you have a quiz, David, ban Pat McLaughlin. He's too good and quick. Pat McLaughlin certainly has a really good, almost encyclopedic knowledge of past Celtic results and games and players and stuff. When I do the trivia quizzes every day, for most of them, I have to sort of look things up and research them and double check the answers and stuff, such as the quiz question today about Lee Griffiths, whose birthday is today. Hugh Jameson, sad to go onto a Celtic channel and criticise as a Rangers fan. I'd never go on and comment on a Rangers channel. I've never been on a Rangers channel. I think if people want to have a proper debate and they're being reasonable and so on, I'm happy to debate anybody about football. And as long as people are being polite and respectful and not rude and abusive and stuff, people are welcome. But there have been a few people who have come on the live stream who have been Rangers fans who have not been very nice, and there have been lots of them in the comment section who've been really horrible to me. So, but it's quite simple to exclude people and ban people. YouTube's actually very good, and the live stream package I've got through StreamYard is also really good at getting people excluded as well. Great to have you on, Ernest, mostly. Really good point, actually. Hugh Jameson, a much needed product for Celtic's youth system to see Donovan come through. Just seems so rare nowadays. You're entirely right. We used to do a brilliant job of bringing through our own young players. It kind of petered out. Obviously, we had a good bunch of players with McGregor and Ralston and Forrest. We bit after that, Kieran Tierney. Then there was a bit of a gap. Stephen Welsh, who was a pretty okay player for Celtic. We've not had a lot of young players coming into the first team and establishing themselves. Colby Donovan, I think, has done a great job in the couple of seasons he's been playing for the first team. And I think he's going to get better and better and better the more experience they get. He's clearly now Celtic's number 2 right back as things stand. Yep, good point, Jay Celtic boy. We definitely need more cover, more quality, more squad depth, but may need to wait because we can't attract a better quality of player if we're not in the Champions League, and I think that's a definite factor. I think Celtic's got a list of players that they're going to go for in the final week, assuming that we qualify next Tuesday. And one of the reasons that Celtic do have a very healthy bank balance is because the financial people, the chief executive, the chief financial officer have been careful with Celtic's money. They have been judicious and not spending money that they don't have. It's obviously caused a lot of teams all around Scotland, all around UK, all around Europe to go bankrupt by spending money they don't have. And that's one of the reasons we've got lots of money in the bank, is because they have been careful with the money, which then does, as I say, give you financial security. It also gives you the ability to turn down bids if you don't want to sell players, as has been the case over the last 10 seasons. We've been able to hold on to players, admittedly not for years and years, but we've been able to hold on to players for 6 months, 12 months because of the financial security. Pat Mac, 1900. If we qualify, we're probably up 60 million. If we include the Engels sale, I think that could all be yes. The story is that you get about 40 million for being in the Champions League and winning a few games, but you do get a really good guaranteed amount of money. Bring in a couple of defensive midfielders. You future-proof, and I think sure someone has already talked about the fact that we need to replace Callum McGregor. We haven't really apparently made any efforts to replace Callum McGregor in the last 2 or 3 years. It's why I would have loved to see Celtic bringing in a defensive midfielder, maybe even a really young, talented defensive midfielder a season or 2 ago, and then allowed them to learn under Callum McGregor, learn under the coaching staff, etc. and to bring them through to be Celtic's first choice defensive midfielder, holding midfielder type person. For one reason or other, it was never considered a priority by Rodgers and his scouting team and recruitment team. Does look like it's something that O'Neill has identified, i.e. we do seem to be looking at several different young defensive midfielders. Celtic boy, can't get much better cover than him at United. I think there are a few players that Celtic are looking at in terms of bringing in. I would be really quite happy if we did bring in Ferry, the left midfielder from Dundee United. I think he's a really talented player. I think he's the kind of player who could step up to be better and better at the Celtic level. I do like the look of Nico Sigur. I do like the look of Gineitis. And I think those are both targets and both the sorts of players who would be happy to come to Celtic. And I think we do have to always bear that in mind. One of the other things that reportedly O'Neill and Maloney have been keen on getting when they have been doing getting scouting reports about players is also the players' kind of mentality and psychology and personality and stuff. Because I do think certain people do fit into teams better than others. Some people fit in and cope, changing cultures, changing languages, changing country. Nice point, Wyoming CSC. We shop in Waitrose, Rangers, and Aldi. Yes, we certainly are shopping in a transfer shop, one or two levels above Rangers, 2 or 3 levels above Hearts and Aberdeen and Dundee United and stuff. And I think that's part of the reason that things have taken longer to get players in. This summer is because we are shopping for a different sort of player, more complicated in terms of persuading players to come to Celtic, more complicated in terms of persuading players to give up their best players, getting teams to give up their best players. Johnny Blake, what's happening with getting rid of Deadwood? We certainly have got rid of players that didn't seem to have a future at Celtic. We got rid of Hayata Inemura. We got rid of Mike Navrocki. We got rid of Paulo Bernardo, although he could come back. We got rid of Shin Yamada. Again, he could come back. But we got rid of Luis Palma. He was surplus to the requirements. We got rid of Stephen Welsh. He was deemed surplus to the requirements. Same with Hayata Inemura. Same with Mike Navrocki. So it does look like O'Neill has actually been quite aggressive, quite forward-thinking in terms of clearing out players that he didn't think had a future at Celtic. A couple of them, Paulo Bernardo, Shin Yamada, they could come back to Celtic from their loan spells. There is a purchase price with Paulo Bernardo, but the other team, Górnik Zabrze in Poland, aren't obliged to spend that money on him. I don't think there's a purchase price attached to Shin Yamada. Yep. Celtic boy. I would let anyone go that wants to move on. Yep, I would tend to agree with that. If someone wants to leave Celtic or wants to leave any football club, I think it's actually counterproductive to keep them at the club because they don't tend to perform very well. That was sort of the case with Dijsselbloem for half of last season. He didn't really seem his normal self. So obviously in the previous years, Matt O'Reilly, Nicholas Kuhn, Kyogo, Christopher Ayer, Odson Edward, Musa Dembele, all of those players, once they decided they wanted to leave, their performances didn't really hold up. Matt O'Reilly might be an exception to that. I think O'Reilly kept on playing 100% until he left us, but all the other ones I think didn't really commit themselves quite so much. And that was the story with Engels. Apparently he was refusing to play last night had he still been at the club. Clashman Numpty, 15 players have gone, either sold or on loan. Yep. So for several of last season's players, their loans were ended and they weren't renewed. Interestingly, Joel Mvuka, who had a terrible time for Celtic on loan, has gone back to Bodo Glimt. So it'll be interesting to see whether he recaptures his good form he had at Bodo Glimt. Thomas Chavanchara seems to be frozen out by Borussia Mönchengladbach. A few players obviously Iheanacho and Sarachi, both who were with us, they've gone to pastures new. So a combination of loan players, loans ending, selling players like Luis Palma, Navrocki, etc., and also loaning out a couple of players like Paulo Bernardo and Shin Yamada. He's done a really good job, I think, of paring down Celtic's squad, which in theory allows a few of the younger players a chance to come through as well. I would love to see Celtic using a few of their younger players, the Mercados and the Kennedys and stuff, coming off the bench. Pat Mack saying net spend is much more than 2 million at present, between 10 and 16 in profit. Well, it depends. Well, if we add in all the clauses, all the additional fees for Ho, Duran, Hassan, and Mika Bauer, we're talking about 12, 18, 27, 33, about 33 million if we have their basic price plus their add-on clauses. And we sold Engels for, some people say 22, some people say 25. Maida's was 10, and about 6-7 million for Luis Palma and Navrocki and Inamura all put together. So it probably is a bit more than 2 million, maybe not quite as much as 16 million. It's probably in the region of 8 to 10 if we think about all the clauses for the 4 players that we bought being added on to the basic. Yes, completely agree. I think I've been trying to say that for the last 2 hours, and I tried to say that in the video that I did earlier on this evening. Plunge 274, Hatate will be sold, and Chineki and Balakwisha will go out on loan. I think Hatate wants to leave, obviously. He only wants to leave to go to one of the big 5 leagues. He doesn't want to go and play in Greece, doesn't want to go and play in America. He wants to play in England, France, Germany, Italy, or Spain. I'm not convinced at this point that a team of high enough quality in those 5 countries is going to come in for him. But plus also the fact that Celtic have put a £10 million price tag on him at the moment, and maybe the fact that O'Neill played him yesterday evening rather than playing McCowan in midfield, coming off the bench, maybe that's a sign that the dispute and unhappiness between Hatate and O'Neill has been ruled out. The only team that supposedly has bid properly for Hatate is Panathinaikos in Greece. Nobody else supposedly has put in a proper bid for him. And Hatate has said there are only certain countries he's going to go and play in. So maybe Hatate's had a bit of a change in mind and he's going to stay at Celtic for another season. And I think he would be a very useful player for Celtic as a backup player, a bench player, rest and rotating type player. YMC CSE get Benjamin Arthur back. Now, to the best of my memory, Benjamin Arthur has been loaned by Brentford to somebody for the season. I can't remember off the top of my head who it is, but my understanding is that Benji Arthur has been loaned by Brentford to somebody in the English Championship. There we are. Arthur went to Portsmouth. Yep, I was going to say Portsmouth, but so quite right. Thank you very much, David Soccer, for confirming that. So Pat McLaughlin, that was something I was going to come back to. Any more information on Sugawara? So Sugawara is a right back that Celtic reportedly have been talking to Southampton about. Sugawara is a right back primarily, can play centre back, can play right midfield. 26 years old, 5'10", 25 caps for Japan with 2 goals, playing for Southampton, and had a good World Cup. He was one of the best World Cup right back statistically this summer. 2 years left on his contract at Southampton. His valuation is said to be 4.7 million. Thought that Southampton wants 6 million for him. Previous teams: Nagoya in Japan, Alkmaar in Holland, and Werder Bremen. That's where he was last season. He was on loan at Werder Bremen. So he got moved from Alkmaar to Southampton, played a season for Southampton. Then he got loaned out last season to Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen were thought to be in the process of buying him at the end of that loan, but changed their mind. Career for Southampton: 35 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 4 yellow cards. Career: 301 games, 16 goals, 37 assists, 26 yellow cards, 1 red card. Last season, his average rating was 6.5, so not brilliant when he was on loan at Werder Bremen. Bit of a profile for him. He's very much a box-to-box right back, much the same as Alistair Johnston. Tends to stay only on the right-hand side, doesn't go much across to the centre or to the left, but certainly bombs up and down the right wing. Tremendous endurance to get up and down the right wing, midfield and into attack. Very, very good passer as well, very accurate passer. Okay for long passes, not great for crosses. Average defensive stats for interceptions, blocks, tackles, etc. But very, very hard for players to dribble past him. So he isn't the best for interceptions and clearances, not brilliant at winning the ball on the ground. He's average, so he's good enough at winning these things, but particularly good at stopping players getting past him. So a lot of very positive things with Sugawara. One theory that I put forward was that maybe Celtic are looking to take Sugawara on loan for the season with a purchase price at the end of that. Given the fact that Southampton were happy to release him on loan last season, with that kind of possible purchase price at the end with Werder Bremen, maybe suggest they might do the same again with Sugawara, and then that way Sugawara is in at Celtic for a season. Alistair Johnston moves on next summer, and we've got a ready-made replacement. Sugawara is 26, Johnston's 27, so they're both experienced internationals. There are a lot of similarities between the two. So, Strangelove the Doctor, can someone explain to me why Gineitis would be a good player for Celtic's midfield? I understand bringing in Sigur or someone like Mamic, but the Chirino player, I'm not feeling it. Okay. I'll just try and put up Gineitis' stats, if those are any use. So, Gavidas Gineitis, 22 years old, 6'3". Now, 6'3" is a really good size for a midfielder, so he's going to give us that definite midfield presence of a bigger, stronger player. At the age of 22, he's played 32 times for his country, for Lithuania, scored 5 goals in 32 games, pretty good for a midfielder. Plays central midfield, plays defensive midfield, can play attacking midfield, so he would cover 6, 8, and 10 roles. Contract still has 3 years to run. His valuation, according to the experts, is 5.1 million. It's thought that Torino might want 6, might want 8, might want 10, might want 12. But they definitely are looking to sell Gineitis this summer. 80 games for Torino, 3 goals, 3 assists, 14 yellow cards. So 14 yellow cards in 80 games shows he does actually mix it in midfield. Total career at Torino and his previous clubs, 20 goals, 7 assists in 140 games. Not too bad for a midfielder. High number of yellow cards, high number of red cards. So he certainly does give Celtic a physical presence in midfield. Looking at some of his other stats, his average rating last season for Torino, 6.76. Goes box to box, very left-sided and central. Doesn't get over to the right-hand side, but he bombs up and down the left side. Very much gets back to defend, gets forward to support the attack, works very hard in midfield. Primarily left-sided player. 1 shot per game, basically. Not tremendous accuracy with his shooting. Very good passing accuracy in both halves. Okay for long passes and crosses. Okay defensive stats. Very good at winning the ball back in the ground. Very difficult for players to get past him, and doesn't give the ball away terribly often. So many positives to him. He's big, 6'3", athletic, tremendous endurance. A lot of caps for a player of 22 years old. He's played in the Italian Serie A for 2 or 3 seasons. So there are a lot, for me, Dr. Strangelove, a lot of positives with Gineitis. I think he's a player maybe like Arnie Engels, a player who will come to Celtic and get better and better. Clashman Umpty saying, I'd love to keep Hatate, though. Thought he looked comfortable last night and is great cover. I completely agree. I think he's a great player to have in Celtic's on Celtic's bench, to come off the bench as a sub, start some games to rest McGregor or Bauer or whomever else is in our midfield. And if we think back to the Rangers 2-2 game, he came on when we were 2-0 down at half-time to Rangers. He was a massive factor in Celtic getting back in that game to draw. He took control of midfield far better. In the 0-0 draw, I thought he actually controlled the midfield really well in a difficult game. He scored the vital penalty in the Rangers 2-2 and in the Cup quarter-final win on penalties. Plunge 274. Good point. Hatate doesn't want to be covered. He wants to play. I think Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney are clever enough to tell players like Hatate, you come into the side and you play well, you're going to you'll keep your place. At the moment, it certainly looks like Mika Bauer has got a step ahead of Hatate in the pecking order. But let's say Mika Bauer's foot problem that he seemed to have just before he came off, maybe that's going to be too much of a problem for Bauer to start on Tuesday. Hatate can come in. I think Hatate is a very reliable player, and if he's motivated and positive and thinks he's got a chance to reclaim his place at Celtic, I think he would be a really useful player for us on Tuesday if Bauer turns out not to be fit enough. Great. Pat Sanders, as in general terms, on the David 67 channel, I think the general viewers, subscribers, and live stream participants are all that wee bit older than many of the other live streams, which I think is brilliant, because in general terms, if you've been watching football like I have since 1970, the 71-72 season. So we're talking getting on now for 55 years. You see an awful lot of football, you get a lot of experience, etc. So I think there is a lot more. Michael Ross, you were born in March 1967, so you saw Lisbon, and I missed it by 2 months. Yes, although I suspect if you were born in March 1967, you probably don't have an awful lot of memory of the win over Inter Milan in Lisbon. But I take your point, and as I say, it backs up the fact that the majority of fans of subscribers, viewers, and participants in the live stream on this channel are that bit older. Plunge 274. You've just turned 30 and you look old, and I look older than you. Well, I think part of that is because I've got a white grey beard, but if sometimes with age comes experience and wisdom and stuff. So getting back to Strangelove, the doctor's point, I think Gineitis is a good player. He's got international level experience, way beyond most 22-year-olds. He's played in a top league for a couple of seasons. He covers the main positions for Celtic. He would fit into central midfield. He'd fit into defensive midfield. He could play further forward if required. Big player. Naturally left-footed, which is quite useful in terms of midfielders. He could be a Callum McGregor replacement in a season or two's time as well, when McGregor maybe hangs up his boots. And in general terms, over the last 2 or 3 years, Callum McGregor's missed several games every season with his Achilles tendon and calf problems. So I think Gineitis would be a good player for Celtic to bring in. Plunge 274. Casper needs to start scoring goals. We have scored 3 goals for Celtic. Admittedly, they're all in the same game against Kilmarnock, but he's played 3 games for Celtic. No, so it's 3. Anyway, he's scored 3 goals for Celtic already, and his contribution to the team was I thought brilliant yesterday, and I think he's going to be so useful in the away leg on the as an out ball that Celtic have tended to not really have terribly much up front. Players like Maeda, Iheanacho, despite the fact he was actually that bit bigger, wasn't the best at holding the ball up. I think people have said the last time Celtic had that sort of stronger central striker type person was Giacomakis. Kyogo, not really a player for knocking the ball up for him to hold up and bring the opposition, the teammates in. Same with Maeda, wasn't really designed that way either. I think it also Celtic does have, with the combination of Duran and Ho as our 2 main strikers, we do have that ability to interchange them. Duran, a different sort of player. Duran, a player who likes running onto the ball over the top. Ho, more of a player who likes getting the ball given to him in the box to score goals. Duran, quite happy also driving from distance to get himself to run onto the ball and stuff. So I think we're actually quite blessed with 2 very good quality strikers. Michael Ross, wonder what Sinisalo's worth. Well, whatever he's worth, he gave Celtic his worth yesterday with several very important saves. According to Joe Hart and Kasper Schmeichel, who were obviously co-commentating and being pundits and stuff, the suggestion was that because it was quite rainy yesterday at Celtic Park, the pitch was quite slick. It was quite difficult to actually judge shots that were coming in at you. And I thought he did a really good job of holding on to quite a number of powerful shots from the LASK players. And I thought he made a couple of really high quality saves to keep us in the lead, and then keep the 2-goal gap. Pat Sanders, if Osmond is good enough, no matter the age, play him in the team. I think Osmond will start to get more and more game time the deeper we go into the season. I think it will come to the point where Ho and Duran will need the odd game off, or the odd game where maybe they're on the bench and Osmond starts the game. I would be much happier if Osmond was starting games rather than Johnny Kenny. I think Osmond is 3 or 4 levels above Johnny Kenny. So I do think Callum Osmond will get more and more of a chance as the season goes on. Wyoming CSC thought Osmond would come on for Duran last night. I think the intention was to try and give Hasim Hassan more game time, and so obviously Duran was playing as nominally as a right winger, although that wasn't really his role as such yesterday evening. So I think that was the idea, was just to give Hasim Hassan a bit more game time. Otherwise, you would have been taking off Gineitis, having brought Gineitis on for Yang. So I think it was just a chance to give Hassan some more game time. Yep, Sinisalo's growing with confidence. Completely agree, Johnny Briggs. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he learned a lot under Kasper Schmeichel. I thought he took over from Kasper Schmeichel 2/3 of the way through last season really quite well. I think he made a number of very good saves for Celtic over the course of the 20 games he played in the final part of the season. Made 1 or 2 mistakes, but then everybody makes mistakes playing football. Good point, actually, Sligo Boy, saying, I don't think LASK were overhyped, just Celtic being cautious after Kierat. I think Celtic took LASK as seriously as they needed to do. I think Celtic massively underestimated how good Kierat Almaty actually were. Kierat Almaty, not the most talented players, but they played 100% for each other. They played for the manager. They played to the tactics and formation that they were told to. And I don't think Celtic last season under Rodgers and his coaching staff and scouting staff had worked out how Kierat Almaty actually worked. I think they just assumed that we turn up and we win. I don't think that's ever going to be the case with O'Neill or Maloney or the Celtics' current mentality in terms of preparation and stuff. I think O'Neill and Maloney are very, very good at getting the players prepared, etc. So I think Celtic knew roughly how LASK were going to play. They knew that they played basically in variations of a 3-5-2. And I think O'Neill and his team worked out where the strengths and weaknesses were in the LASK team, and they changed the way that Duran played. I think they changed a bit the way that Nygren played, and I do think that Mika Bauer was a good addition to the team. Played differently from how Engels would have played the role, but I thought he actually was very, very useful. Alison Timpany, Rocket Man for Duran because he's rapid. I think, Duran's got lots of pace. He showed a few more tricks, a couple of really lovely dummies where he came for the ball, he dummied the ball ran through him, and it ran through Bello, the left wing back, spun round and beat Bello to the ball and took away from him. I think Duran is a really, really good player, and better than I thought he was going to be, particularly how quickly he's settled into the team. Thank you, Michael Ross. You keep on saying that I'm the best on YouTube ever. I'm certainly not the best on YouTube ever. Thank you, Johnny Briggs. All I ever try and do is say what I think, mean what I say, and say what I mean, and happy to have lots of people's opinions. Michael Ross still think David looks like Bill Oddie. Well, Bill Oddie's dead, so that's not the nicest compliment. But I see where you're coming from. Bill Oddie was a wee dumpy, grey-haired, bearded guy as well. Well, I mean, CSE will start cautiously on Tuesday, which is probably the correct approach. I think that's the case. I think Celtic will start in a defensive formation, start quite a lot deeper than we did on Wednesday, and counteract them in midfield. As I say, they haven't got an awful lot of ability out wide. Their width primarily comes from their two wing backs, who aren't the best in terms of attacking. Kenneth Todd, I would agree in 1,000,000% with what you're saying. We need to keep on improving. There's a couple of places still needing upgrade. I completely agree. There are positions where Celtic need to be stronger. Also, I think Celtic need to be stronger in terms of how good the backup players are. I suspect from the fact that O'Neill is very keen to bring in this young Chelsea fullback on loan, Landon Emanalo, that he's considering using Liam Scales also as a backup to Kieran Tierney over the season. Both Liam Scales and Austin Trusty have played at left back 20, 30 times or so previously in their career for other clubs. They've both played left back a few times for their countries. I think they both actually are good, strong, adaptable players. Obviously, neither Scales nor Trusty is anywhere as good as Kieran Tierney in the final third of the pitch. But I think they both are capable deputies for Kieran Tierney if required. But it does look like O'Neill's very keen on this Emanalo chap from Chelsea. And once he's over his minor knock, which is keeping him from playing football at the moment, he should be apparently a Celtic player in about 10 days' time once he's over this wee minor injury. So, but I completely agree. We need to keep on improving, and I think we also need to improve the squad depth and quality of the replacements. So we need to have a better replacement in midfield than Luke McCowan. I would personally like to see us having a better backup centre back than Dane Murray, and I agree with what other people have been saying. The fact that Carter Vickers and Johnson have been recently injury prone, for me it would be useful to have a more experienced backup centre back to back that position up, and a more experienced backup right back to back up Alistair Johnson. And maybe that's the intention with Nico Sigur, is we get two for the price of one. We get a midfielder and we get a right back, and that half his games have been in one position, half on the other side. Great to have you on, Vincent O'Brien. Hail from Dublin. Hail from east of Scotland, where I live. Lovely to have you on. Lovely to have you on as well, Ronnie McNairney. I certainly hope that we've got Camilo Duran for 2 or 3 seasons. His past record is he has actually tended to be at clubs for 1 or 2 seasons and moved on. Obviously, he was at Carabag for 1 season. He was one season, I think, at his Portuguese club, Portimonense. He doesn't tend to stay at clubs terribly long, but hopefully we do get 2 or 3 years out of Camilo Duran. We have got him on a 4 or a 5 year contract, so certainly Celtic do have the protection of having already got him in a long-term contract, which does actually mean we can fend off transfer bids for him in the future, in that we've got him on a long contract. Plunge 274, 2 weeks tonight, the window in Scotland shuts. That's right, Wednesday, the 3rd of September. I think is at 5 o'clock in the afternoon rather than at 11 o'clock at night. So I think I'm right in saying so. It shuts on. You're quite right. It shuts in 2 weeks' time, which is a Thursday, obviously, and it shuts in the late afternoon rather than last thing at night. So. Plunge 274, we were told every penny coming into the club gets spent on the team. Why is ours in the bank? Well, part of where Celtic's money has been going over the last 4 or 5 seasons is bigger and bigger and bigger contracts and salaries and bonuses for the players. Celtic now has by far and away the biggest wage spending in Scotland, considerably higher than Rangers by 5-6 million, and Celtic's wage budget has been going up by 2 or 3 million every season for the last 4 or 5 seasons. I did have a slide that backed that up, but I seem to have lost that slide. But sorry if there's problems with the stream. Sorry if there's been buffering. It seems fine at my end, but I apologise if there's problems. Run it in no buffering on the telly stream. Well, as I say, it seems fine at my end. Usually, if there's problems with buffering, the buffering happens at the broadcasting end as well as the receiving end. Wyoming CSC, how did Mvuka end up at Bodo? He did very well at Bodo Glimt before he moved to play in France, and his career kind of went down the toilet when he played in France. So So he apparently was very, very happy playing in Norway, played very well for Bodø Glimt, which is how he got the move to French football. And it's mostly saying we should trying to keep trying to get Knutsen from Bodø. He's the man. I think Knutsen wants to be at Bodø Glimt in the longer term. I think he probably would have had a chance to come to Celtic at several points last season, but chose to stay managing in Norway. He's turned down quite a lot of offers over the last 2 or 3 years. Nope, nice to have you on, Slabbing Cabbage. Johnny Briggs saying Gineitis is destined for stardom. I think he is going to be a really good player. Sligo Boy, Sugawara, good stats, maybe out with our price range. Well, the story is Southampton wants £6 million for him, which seems a pretty decent fee for a 26-year-old international. Played in Japan, played in Holland, played in Germany, played in England. Played really well at the World Cup just a few months ago, or a month ago, rather. Michael Ross saying Gineitis is out of our price range. Well, as I said earlier on, Torino apparently have to clear £20 million worth of debt off their books. So they are currently going to be a selling club, which does mean that obviously the transfer fees they're going to ask for will come down a bit. The most recent figure I saw was a £6 million basic package and £3 or £4 million in add-on clauses after that. So I think, given the fact that Celtic spent 11 million on Engels a couple of summers ago, spent 12 million on Ho a few weeks ago, I think a package of 10 million for Gineitis would be well within the budget. 9 million, obviously, is what the eventual budget or deal would be for Hassan if all the various add-on clauses get added on. Quite right, Slagger Boy, 6'3". We need bigger players. He would give us a definite midfield presence. Good point, Craig McLean, and I know where you're coming from. It's difficult in terms of getting players' spellings right and also how to pronounce their name right as well. Can we start looking at players? It doesn't take a week and a half to learn how to spell their names, please. Yes, I completely agree. Be nice to have a few that have got simpler to pronounce names. Johnny Briggs saying much better than Engels for Gineitis. Hoopy the Doug David, if we got Torino who drops out, got the Torino boy Gineitis who drops out, I don't think anybody necessarily drops out. I think probably what that means is that Mika Bauer would be on the bench some weeks. Callum McGregor might be on the bench some weeks. Gineitis might be on the bench some weeks. Also, there's a lot of speculation that O'Neill's going to move this season out of the 4-3-3 to a 3-4-3, a 5-3-2, a 3-5-2, or moving between these various different formations, also playing different formations in one game compared to the next game. Pretty much ever since the days of Brendan Rodgers' first spell, we've been pretty much set in 4-3-3 under every single manager. O'Neill certainly is talking about using different formations for different teams, switching from one formation into other during games. So just trying to catch up. There's an awful lot of comments on the screen that seems to have got really, really far behind. So I've scooted through a whole lot of comments. So I didn't realize I was so far behind with the comments. So I've actually scooted through a lot of comments. So apologies for people who are making really good points in the comments that I've scooted through. But I didn't realize I was so far behind, which maybe is why I thought people think there's been a bit of a lag. Anyway, Scott Dougal, as long as Martin keeps healthy, he can keep going. For me, the man walks on water at Celtic. He's certainly been a massive, massive difference, I think, on and off the pitch. He's got the players playing so much better. He's got everybody playing as a team. He's got players playing with confidence, playing with team spirit. I think Maloney's been a really, really good addition to Celtic as well. Yep, Wyoming CSC, you're entirely right. Thomas Chavanchara, if all that Thomas Chavanchara ever did for Celtic was to score that vital penalty at Ibrox to win the penalty shootout, he made a big contribution even just doing that. Scored an important goal against Motherwell, scored an important goal against Falkirk, and the pressure he must have been on stepping up to take that penalty kick. Same way that obviously that Trusty had to do, Hatate had to do, and Oxlade Chamberlain have to do. It was, I thought, the all four of them showed tremendous guts and confidence to score those penalties that day. So Thomas Chavanchara, if all he did was score that penalty for Celtic, which isn't quite the case, but he was disappointing overall. Yep, you're entirely right, James Smith. We had 4 perfect penalties when Austin Trusty stepped up to take, I think it was the second penalty. I thought, oh my goodness, because to the best of my knowledge, Austin Trusty had never taken a penalty kick before as a professional player. But he put the penalty kick away. I knew that Chavin Chara was a good penalty taker from his previous time in playing football in the Czech Republic for his first team. And he hit a really good penalty to score that goal. Oxley Chamberlain scored a good penalty. Hatate scored a brilliant penalty in the shootout. Not quite so good as the one in the 2-2 draw. Obviously wasn't quite such a good penalty, but in the end we got that goal. Yep, Pat McLaughlin, Thomas Chavin-Chara's way back to Mönchengladbach. Of course, he was unfortunately injured and needed surgery right at the end of his Celtic time. He seems to be fully recovered from his injury, but it looks like he is, as you say yourself, likely to be going out on a loan. Don't think there's any possibility of him coming back to Celtic, especially with how well Duran and Ho have been playing for Celtic so far. Milky Moo, I seen Trusty step up to that, and I thought he must know what he's doing, and he certainly knew what he was doing because he put the penalty kick away really brilliantly. And again, I thought in that game particularly, Trusty stood up and led the team, because remembering that was a game where McGregor wasn't playing and Tierney wasn't playing, so it was actually a relatively weak Celtic team in terms of experience. And I think he actually steps up to be a leader more so than Liam Scales, who obviously was the other experienced player in defence we had that afternoon. Good point, James Smith. I think you're making a good point there. Trusty's a better player than Scales playing on the left. I think a lot of us underestimated the fact that Trusty for the whole of last season basically was playing on the right side of defence. He also had to adapt to the Wilfred Nancy system as well, where he played a lot more centrally. And under the Wilfred Nancy system, Trusty was the one who tended to have to stay back a lot more. And with the way that Celtic didn't really adapt to the Nancy system, it meant that Trusty quite often was defending 4 against 1, because Ralston and Scales and Tierney and Engels and McGregor were all rather slow getting back to support him. So I do think part of Trusty's difficulties last season, where he was playing on the wrong side of the defence, he'd always played as a left centre-back at his previous clubs in America and at Sheffield United and stuff. So I do think Trusty is a much better left-sided player than he is a right-sided player or a central player. And if Celtic do go to playing a 3-5-2, be interesting to see whether Trusty ends up on the left side of that back three, or whether he's put more the central person. Wyoming CSE, 100% Deke will leave Trusty with the ball at Mordor. He always did that at Hearts. I think one of the benefits that Trusty will have this time around is he's actually going to be on his better side, i.e. the left side. I think he's also going to have a more capable person to pass inside to in Carter Vickers. I think he's also, if we do have Mika Bauer playing alongside McGregor in midfield, you'll have two players coming back to get the ball more so than Engels used to do. So one of the problems Trusty often had was no one was making himself available for the pass. So I think Trusty's actually a really decent passer when he gets the opportunity, as he proved with helping set up the third goal for Celtic on Wednesday evening. Fair enough. Pinballs 7992. You say I would pick Scales before Trust every time. Well, my preference is to Austin Trusty rather than Scales. I think Trusty's got a lot more pace than Scales. I think his positioning generally is better than Scales. Gives away far fewer fouls than Liam Scales as well. I think Scales is a tremendously good, wholehearted player, very committed. I think he maximizes his talent. I think he's a great player for Celtic to have in their squad. A player who's going to be loyal to Celtic for probably the rest of his career. I just think there's a bit more creativity, a bit more in terms of passing, in terms of Trusty as opposed to Scales. Also, Trusty has the ability to recover and catch up with players if they get past him. Scales tends to, if someone gets past him, he tends to pull them down. Trusty at least has the ability to cover back and defend and catch up with them. Also, I think Trusty's better at covering in behind the fullback, better in covering in behind his fellow centre back. But I think there are several areas where Scales is a better player. James Smith, we should raid Germany again. It's always done us a turn, as we have had Andy Tom, Hinkle, Engels, Bauer, Moritz Jens. Yes, we've had a lot of really good good players from Germany. I think the fact that Mika Bauer's career before he came to Celtic was primarily in the second division in Germany shows that the strength in the German Bundesliga 2 is actually very strong. And so I wouldn't have a particular problem if Celtic did recruit someone from the upper half of the German second division or the lower half of the Bundesliga 1, which is what we did obviously when we got Engels in from Augsburg. They were a lower third type team in the Bundesliga 1. Johnny Briggs saying Trusty's underrated. I would tend to agree with that as well, but I think, like with everything, there's subjective opinions, there's objective opinions. I think if we analyse the defensive type stats comparing Trusty and Scales, I think probably we would find that Trusty's defensive stats are better than Scales. But there are many aspects in which Liam Scales is a good defender, and I think he is as I said earlier on, a good loyal player for Celtic as well. James Smith saying, Johnny, agree 100%. Trusty is, if he was Irish, everyone would be raving about him. I think that I don't honestly know that he seems to be somebody who, since he joined Celtic, hasn't been that popular with the fans. Same way that as Kasper Schmeichel was talking about yesterday evening, the fact that Engels was Celtic's top scorer last season with 21 goals, and still a lot of people feel that Trusty isn't, that Nygren isn't worth his place on the side. So far this season, Nygren's had 4 goals and 4 assists, which I think is pretty impressive for 4 games into the season, and he's had 1 goal per game and 1 assist per game. So. Just be a wee second. So Pat Sanders thinks, always felt that Vickers is overrated, too slow, and his marking's off often at the back. I think Carter Vickers doesn't have as much pace as one would want. I think he's not quite at 100% full fitness for match practice and stuff. I think he's working his way back to his best levels. I thought his first couple of seasons at Celtic were very, very good. Since that time, he's had a lot of problems with injuries, missed a lot of game time, obviously missed 3/4 or more of last season. I think Carter Vickers basically is a good defender, but like every player in Celtic's team, there are areas where he could be better. James Smith, CCV is solid but short of pace. I think that's a reasonable point of view. James Smith was saying, must admit, I was one who didn't rate Nygren, but he's slowly changing. I think Nygren's actually, so far this season, looks a much better player than he did last season. I think O'Neill and Maloney have worked out a good way of using Benjamin Nygren at his best. He does seem to be playing a wee bit further up the pitch, a wee bit more free-flowing and more of a free role. I think Celtic have worked out a way to limit how much defensive work Nygren has to do in midfield, lessened how much marking and tracking back he has to do, which does allow him to be free roaming up the top end of the pitch. And I think his link-up play has this season been much, much better. He's also able to get the ball out really quickly, out wide as well, as was proven with the third goal. I thought his interaction with Camilo Duran was really, really good. And given the fact they've only been playing together for 2 or 3 weeks. Yep, Johnny Briggs, centre-halves are hard to find. Used to be an abundance in the 80s, I think. That's also true. I think also Celtic like their centre-backs these days to be comfortable on the ball. Obviously, in most games in Scotland, our 2 centre backs have got the ball at their feet a very large amount of the time. Trusty and Carter Vickers are pretty comfortable on the ball. Dane Murray also pretty comfortable on the ball. Scales at times can look a bit nervous on the ball. Robert Ducks 67. You like Trusty ever since he booted the keeper, which was Jack Buckland, on the head in the League Cup semi-final. I think that was a bit of a silly thing to do. He could easily have been red carded for that. Not that there was actually very much force in his contact with Buckland's head, but it was a bit stupid. And certainly that's what a couple of the Rangers pundits, co-commentator type people, I think it was it Billy Dodds, the ex-Rangers player and ex-Rangers coach, that was saying that Trusty had caused a terrible facial wound and injury on Butland's head, but all the camera pictures and TV pictures showed that Butland didn't have a single mark on his head after the Trusty contact. Good question, James Smith. Who's going to be Celtic's top scorer of the season? I think there's a very good chance that Casper, who is going to be Celtic's top scorer, you're going for 25 goals this season. I would have a feeling that he's probably going to equal what Maeda and Kyogo have done in the past, which is score 30 goals in the season. I think with the fact that Celtic are going to be sharing the goal scoring between Duran and Ho and Nygren, and probably also some goals from Hassan, some goals from Gineitis, some goals from Bauer and McGregor and whoever else joins us in the midfield. I think also Celtic's going to get better and better at dealing with set pieces, both on the attack and the defence. I think we've got a really good specialist coach in to coach that. I think our defending at set pieces this season has been much better since he came in. We still aren't quite so powerful as I would like in terms of scoring goals from corners and free kicks into the box. The only real sort of chance we had to shoot for goal yesterday from a free kick was Nygren, and unfortunately hit the ball into the wall. I would really love Celtic to have a real threat from direct free kicks, the way we had with Lee Griffiths, or we had previously with players like Nakamura. I would love whoever Celtic gets in over the next couple of weeks into the midfield or into one of the fullback positions, etc. I would really love to have somebody who is really skilled at shooting for goal. Much as I disliked him as a person, James Tavernier, the Rangers right back, was very, very good at delivering the ball from corners, free kicks, really good at scoring from free kicks as well. And I would love Celtic to have somebody of the quality that Griffiths and Nakamura used to give us to score directly from free kicks. I think Nygren, if he keeps on practicing, will get better and better at it. Interesting also that Chineki was taking a few corners yesterday. Mika Bauer took some corners yesterday as well. So, and also Benjamin Nygren took a few corners. I think it's better for Nygren to be in the box when we take when we're taking corners, because he does actually give us yet another aerial threat for scoring. Yep, Nygren also makes a lot of goals. Pat Sander's saying, yep. As I said, this season, I think Nygren's stepped up 10, 20, 30%. I think he's got better and better this season as this season's got on. I think there were quite a number of games last season where he kind of disappeared. Pinball 7992 Chineki Dard is knowing what to buy. I thought Chineki showed a lot of good play yesterday in the 20-30 minutes that he played. I thought he played well in the game before. He scored a goal against Dundee United. I thought he showed quite a lot of ability to run up and down the left wing. I think he's a good player coming off the bench. He scored several very important goals for us last season. So I think, with all respect, I wouldn't really say that Chineki has died. I'm not saying Chineki is not a superstar player. He is only 23 years old, so he still has a lot of scope for improvement. I think having players like Jota and Hassan around him also might well help him keep on improving. So he is only 23. He did have the disadvantage last season of having played a whole season in Sweden and then coming to play a whole season in Scotland. So he did play for 17 months non-stop because of the fact the Swedish season runs straight into the Scottish season, and the Scottish season runs right through to the end of May. Then he was playing in the World Cup for Tunisia for a month, so he didn't actually have any break at all last season, which is why he maybe did struggle a bit for energy and consistency and stuff. Great to have you on, San Fran Celtics 7578. Nygren better than Matt O'Reilly. I think both Nygren and Matt O'Reilly were super players for Celtic. Matt O'Reilly came in for not terribly much money, $2 and a bit million from Wimbledon. He got better and better the longer he was at Celtic. Unfortunately, he has had a bit of a dip in his career since he's left Celtic. Rumours that Celtic might get him back. Whether O'Reilly would want to come back to Celtic, I don't know. There has been talk about Celtic buying him back. There has been some talk about Celtic having him back on loan. Neither of those stories really particularly took off the ground. But it would be interesting to see him coming back to Celtic. I think given how talented he was, there would be a role for him at Celtic. And my personal feeling is the more quality we've got in more positions throughout the team, the better. And so if we did sign Gineitis, and we've got Gineitis, and we've got McGregor, and we've got Bauer, and we've got McGowan, and we've got Hassati, that's great. And we've got Nico Sigur as well. The more players we've got, the better, because it does give us cover for injuries, suspensions. It does allow us to rest and rotate. So I think having an extra couple of midfielders is going to be important, particularly if McGregor does retain this. If McGregor does remain a wee bit prone to problems with his Achilles tendon and his calf muscle, etc., like he has the last 3 or 4 seasons. Fair enough, Johnny Briggs. You think Nygren's better? I would agree with. Would agree with Sligo Boy. Nygren's getting better and better. I think, as I said, I think he's definitely taken a step or two up in terms of his ability, etc. Hopefully that doesn't encourage anybody to put in a late bid for him in the transfer window. I've got the strong feeling with Nygren having maybe 3 years left on his contract that Celtic will turn down all bids for Nygren this summer. I think also the chance of playing in the Champions League also will be a big bonus for keeping Nygren at the club. Maybe also a strong incentive for Hattati to stay at the club as well, in that he would be having at least some game time for Celtic in Europe. Yep, Nygren's improved a lot. I completely agree with that one. Pat McLaughlin saying 116 league goals is a record in a season. I can't off the top of my head remember that, but you're usually very, very good with your stats. Oh, there we are. Great to have had you on, Alison Timpany. Bedtime, good night to you as well. See you again next week. Lovely to have you on. Always lovely to have great variety of different people commenting and contributing to the live stream. Ernest mostly, O'Neill's Invincibles, and Rebel Treble. Yep. Certainly at the moment, in terms of the way that Hearts and Rangers and Aberdeen and Dundee United, etc., are playing, Motherwell as well. I think Celtic are 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody at the moment in Scottish football. I think with 2 or 3 more good signings in the last 2 weeks of the window, I think we're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Pat McLaughlin, 140 years old next November. Yep, November 1888. So you're quite right. Couple of years away from, 1887. Sorry, and then we played our first game in 1888. Pat McLaughlin can't see Martin staying for that. No, I thought that when Martin O'Neill came in this summer to sign for Celtic as Celtic's manager, that we probably would have him for a couple of seasons. I wouldn't be too surprised if he's like one and done, that he's like a Wim Janssen type of manager, in that he's only at Celtic's manager for one season. I think possibly the fact that he had a bit of a health scare a couple of weeks ago with his couple of days in hospital for an operation, I think maybe he's going to be Celtic's manager for 1 year. I think if he's Celtic's manager for 2 years, that's going to actually move Celtic along a long way. James Smith saying, David, what's your view on Marco Rose as the next manager? Unfortunately, I can't see Celtic having any real hope of. Pat McLaughlin, 1887 was when Celtic were founded, but then the first proper games were the next year. But you're quite right. 1887 was when the club was founded, and 1888 was when we had we started playing. So I've been talking for 3.5, 4 hours non-stop. It's actually quite difficult to keep on thinking and talking and doing sums in my head and trying to keep everything going. So I do apologise. There was a slip of the tongue and a mental arithmetic problem. That would be great if we can beat them in every game this season. That'd be really, really good. So coming back to your point, James Smith, Marco Rose is the manager. I would love Celtic to have the clout to be able to sign a manager who is experienced, has managed at the highest level, and is still relatively in the best years of his career. I think, unfortunately, there are going to be a lot more other clubs out there who have a bigger draw in terms of getting a manager of that experience and level of clubs from before to come and manage them. John Garland, do you think they will go for Stevie Clark when Martin retires? I would be surprised. Be very surprised if Celtic did go for Stevie Clark. I am wondering more and more whether some combination of Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham might be the way that Celtic go. Maybe with links with Maloney and Roberto Martinez. That's another way that they might go. And it's mostly Hibs were the Celtic's first game. And I think Celtic's first ever game was against Rangers, rather than against Hibs. We have been playing Hibs for a very, 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 very long time. But I think Celtic's first actual game was against Rangers rather than against. That's what San Fran Celtic saying. Rangers were the first game, I think, as well. And I think it was actually quite, as Michael Ross was saying, it was quite a comfortable win. We beat them from West. Yes. So the consensus is our first ever game was against Rangers, which was in 1888, and I think it was a fairly comfortable win we had against them. Don't think it was as good as that, but I'll just look it up. Yes, it says Celtic against Rangers, 28th of May, 1888, Celtic 5, Rangers 2. So, Stringology McHugh, what were my thoughts on the game last night? I thought Celtic played very well, scored 3 really, really good goals. I think LASK proved to be a very good team, good on the counter-attack, good at playing fast football. I think Celtic adapted how they played better in the second half than the first half. I think Celtic will know better how to defend them when we do go across to Austria on Tuesday. I think we'll have worked out a better way of nullifying Uzor and Adri, and their other striker, the American guy whose name I've forgotten. I thought we did a good job actually of blocking off their midfielders, which is where they often are strong. I think we also did a good job of making their 2 wing backs defend a lot more than they used to. Jorgensen actually, ordinarily playing for LASK, is actually quite a threat in terms of scoring and creating goals. I think Celtic did a good job of pushing him back and making him defend more than he likes to. And the same way with Bello on the left-hand side. James Smith, you make a really good point. I think we need to aim high for our next boss. If you don't ask, you don't get. I think that's entirely reasonable. I think it's entirely possible. What tends to happen these days is if there's a managerial vacancy coming up, a whole lot of agents for a whole lot of managers and coaches send in the sort of metaphorical CV. When we brought in Wilfred Nancy, Celtic went through a recruiting process, involved external people, scouting people, agencies, etc. And we ended up with Wilfred Nancy. That backfired on us. The good old-fashioned way of just choosing a manager. We got back Martin O'Neill first time and second time, and obviously we've got O'Neill in currently as the manager. I think O'Neill was a brilliant choice as a sort of stepping stone or a bridging manager between the chaos of last season and the future years at Celtic. What I would personally like is a young, ambitious manager with experience at the highest level, but a young, ambitious manager who wants to commit 3, 4, 5 years to Celtic. One of the problems, as I said a few times on the live streams, is we've had basically a manager for 2.5 years, time after time after time after time since the days of Ronnie Dahlia. He did a couple of seasons, Rodgers did 2 and a bit seasons, Lennon did 2 and a bit seasons, Postecoglou 2 seasons, Rodgers 2 and a bit seasons. So it would be really great, I think, if we had a manager who came in and, like Kjetil Knutsen in Bodo Glimt, who's now been there 8 or 9 years, is that we actually have a manager who stays at the club, keeps the club moving forward, and starts really concentrating on cultivating and developing young players to keep on coming through to replace the older players, etc., so that we're not so reliant on the transfer market. Because of the UEFA coefficients and the UEFA quotas of 4 homegrown and 4 Scottish trained players, it is something that we have been kind of ignoring for years and years. Yep, we need to try to get one in for at least 5 years. I think that would be really, really helpful if Celtic had a continuity to keep on driving the club forwards. not my favourite people, but Alex Ferguson at Man United, Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, Pep Guardiola at Man City, that one of the strengths of those managers and those clubs was they had continuity of their coaching staff and managerial staff. You think about the great Liverpool teams of the Bootroom days, the Paisleys, the Shankleys, the Fagans, the Ronnie Evans, etc., was they had a continuity for a long, long time through Shankly to Paisley and so on up to Kenny Dalglish when he was the player manager. You basically had the same structure and the same managerial ethos, etc., for about 20 odd years there. So I do think whoever Celtic gets the next manager in a year or 2 years' time, we do need to have somebody, I think, who can give Celtic a long-term commitment. Johnny Briggs, Ferguson's a great agent. Trust me. I don't know Alex Ferguson personally. I have a lot of people do say he was a very different person off the pitch than he was on the pitch. I'm told he was a very, very generous, friendly, warm person off the pitch. He was very keen on entertaining the opposition manager after the game, etc. So, I didn't think he was a terribly nice person when he was doing footballing things. But a lot of people say he has been really, really nice. I think he did give quite a lot of money to one of his junior clubs that he'd been previously involved with to help them out of financial problems. So, anyway. San Fran Celtic 7578 McKenna for manager long term. I think that's that. I think that is a definite theory. My understanding is he is a big Celtic fan. He's had experience managing Ipswich, obviously, for one season in the English Premier League. No experience, obviously, managing in Europe. Comes from a very good background, coming through the Manchester United coaching school, etc. So there are a lot, and he fits the bill in terms of being a young manager. Has got some experience at the highest level. Has got a good background with his Manchester United background, and person thought to be a big Celtic fan. So many positives to McKenna coming to be Celtic manager. He, to the best of my memory, is still out of work. He said he was going to have a year or so of time with his family and then get back into football after that. That may be of some significance, particularly if O'Neill does actually end up being a Celtic manager just for one season this time around. I think you're making a good point there, Pat Santers. You were saying about Brian Clough earlier on. I don't think modern day footballers would put up with the way that Brian Clough managed the team, or that Alex Ferguson manages the team, which I think is why it's even more admirable and amazing how well O'Neill has adapted to having been out of football management for 6 or 7 years after being sacked by Nottingham Forest, before coming back to be Celtic manager again last October time. It's been really, really impressive. Anyway, oops, just a second. Yep, Johnny Briggs, you need the spirit that O'Neill has. Yes, I think he has been very, 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 very impressive. I think having two really good backups in Maloney and Fotheringham's also been a big factor at how well that he has done. I think it's very much been a team effort with Maloney and Fotheringham doing most of the work on the training pitch. I think O'Neill's there as the motivator, the player, the person who um, builds up the player's confidence. And I think O'Neill's done a tremendous amount of work off the pitch for Celtic as well. I think he's improved the scouting team, the recruitment team. I think he's provided leadership in that role that maybe Rodgers wasn't doing for the last 2 or 3 years. Rodgers certainly at previous clubs, Liverpool, Leicester, etc., wasn't very good in terms of his transfer successes at other clubs. So San Fran Celtic was saying, will we get anyone in before Tuesday? There are plenty rumours that Celtic were on the verge of signing Nico Sigur and Balash Toth. I suspect that because nothing much has happened and it's now going to be Friday, it's Friday already now, that probably if there was going to be a signing before Tuesday, things like medicals and stuff would have been starting to get announced now. So I suspect that probably the answer to that question is no, that probably no one's going to be coming into Celtic until after the game on Tuesday. Celtic were in training on Thursday. Yesterday was now yesterday. They're having Friday off, and then I guess they'll be back in for light training on Saturday, light training on Monday, then flying out to Austria probably in the afternoon on Monday afternoon. And what they tend to do nowadays is fly out to the country they're going to for a short period to acclimatise over there. And with it being a relatively short flight, obviously from Glasgow to Linz in Austria, it does mean they have got that flexibility to fly out that wee bit later and do some light training on Saturday and light training on Monday. Good question, Johnny Briggs 773. Has any player ever went from playing for Celtic to being the boss? Not directly. So we've not had a Kenny Dalglish scenario where we've had a player manager type thing. Obviously, Neil Lennon was was a coach at Celtic for about a year or so, a year or 2 years before he went to become the Celtic main person. So he was retired a couple of seasons. Obviously, we've had Billy McNeil in the past. Be a player, and then a few years later coming back as a manager. Davy Hay, another one. We've also obviously had Lou Macari be a Celtic player and come back to be a Celtic manager, and Jimmy McGrory, obviously, as well. Yeah. Sligo Boy, yes, sorry. Tommy Burns, another one who was a player. Left us to go to Kilmarnock, came back a few years later, having managed at Kilmarnock. So we have had obviously a lot of players who've been players and players who've gone away for a season or two, or a lot more than a season or two, and then come back as manager. Tony Mowbray, another one, not a very successful manager at Celtic. But good point, actually. Stringology McHugh. I could easily see McGregor hanging up his boots after the end of this season, or possibly at the latest the end of next season, and then moving into being a coach at Celtic, and then in the medium term becoming Celtic's manager a few years down the line. I think another person who would be a good coach at Celtic rather than a manager at Celtic is Scott Brown. Again, I don't think he is quite cut out to be the actual main man at a club. I think he's a good coach. He's a very intelligent coach and player, but I'm not convinced he's the best person to be the number one at a club. Same way that I'm not sure that Maloney is in his best position to be a manager at a club rather than a head coach or assistant manager. Johnny Briggs, Calmac, first player manager. I don't see Celtic. I don't see Celtic going that far. I can certainly see Callum McGregor remaining in Celtic's coaching staff after he retires in a season or two's time. Same way that I can certainly see James Forrest remain at Celtic after he retires, which is almost 100% certain to be at the end of this season. John Kennedy, John Kennedy obviously was a Celtic player. Then he got a terrible injury playing for Scotland against Romania. Several years trying to come back as a player, could never really recover his knee, and then he became a coach, an assistant manager. He's now off holding Brendan Rodgers' hand in Saudi Arabia. Oh, yeah. Quite right, Kevin Carson. Juxteen played for Celtic, left, came back, and they say the rest is history. You're entirely right. Again, it's actually quite remarkable just how many of Celtic's managers have been Celtic players one way or the other. A few of them have been super successful as Celtic managers. Billy McNeill was a good, successful Celtic manager, particularly the first time. Juxteen, incredible success. Tommy Burns, pretty successful. A difficult time in Celtic's history. Davy Hay, not too bad a record. Some terrible records with Lou McCarry, and not so great with Tony Mowbray either. Yep. Pat McLaughlin, Liam Brady was the first manager not to play for us in 1991. Yep. So we certainly have a long history of bringing back players as coaches, bringing back players as managers. And it's worked really well for us. Yes, totally agree. String along the queue. Rest in peace, Tommy Burns. Yep, Johnny Briggs, Bruni and Foss taking training, I think. It would be nice to see, for me, I would like Scott Brown to become part of Celtic's backroom staff, whether that would work with, under Martin O'Neill, whether that would work with Sean Maloney also being at the club as the assistant manager stroke head coach, etc. I don't know. Not massively sure what the interaction and friendship is between Maloney and Scott Brown. Oops. Quite right, Stringology McHugh, Billy McNeill, absolute legend at Celtic. Celtic's most appearances ever for Celtic. I think it's a record that no one's ever going to break. Tremendously successful captain for Celtic. won so many trophies at Celtic as captain. Obviously, lifted the European Cup for the first time that any British team had ever won it. And his record at Celtic as manager, especially first time around, was really pretty good. Stringhals McHugh, you've heard that Chermiti from Sevco will be up for 3 to 4 managers. Well, certainly I can certainly see Derek McInnes not lasting more than a year at Rangers. If their form in Scottish football doesn't start to pick up, I can easily see him out the door by Christmas or so on. Anyway, okay, Scott Brown not for Pat Santers. Well, fair enough. We certainly went through quite a number of managers in a row that had a really poor success rate. Liam Brady and Lou Macari, two of Celtic's least successful managers of all time. Obviously, our least successful manager of all time statistically would be Wilfred Nancy, but the win-loss ratio with Macari was pretty terrible. Was a wee bit better under Liam Brady, but not good enough. Again, Tony Mowbray's record as Celtic manager pretty poor as well. And certainly, if I was choosing the worst Celtic manager of all time in terms of actual ability and talent, I would go for Lou Macari as being our worst ever manager. I know Wilfred Nancy's percentages for wins and so on was very poor at Celtic, but I do think he actually was a talented manager. Had he had the time to actually build his team, he rather stupidly tried to build his team 4 months into the season, which I think was a stupid thing for him to do. I think he should have basically gradually brought the system in and then had a changeover in the system over the course of this summer. But I think in the end, Celtic's board, etc., made the right decision and sacked him at the earliest opportunity, got O'Neill back, and it turned the season round for us. Anyway, it's now nearly 1 o'clock in the morning, so I think probably time for us to call it a day. Thank you so much to everybody who has contributed to the live stream tonight. Thank you to Pat McLaughlin, Stringology McHugh, Michael Ross, who's been right from the start, Johnny Briggs, who's been on for a long, long time as well. So thank you to absolutely everybody. Lots and lots of brilliant comments. Lots and lots of brilliant comments from Pat Santers, Sligo Boy, Alison Timpany, Ernest Mosley, Johnny Briggs, tons and tons and tons of Michael Rawson. Brilliant comments all evening. Thank you to everybody who has been here for hours and hours and hours. Thank you for everybody who's popped in and out. Thank you for anybody and everybody. Thank you, San Fran Celtic as well. Another regular for the channel, for the live streams. Thank you, James Smith, as well. Lots of great comments too. So as I said, thank you everybody for contributing. Thank you, Sligo Boy, for the positive feedback. We'll be doing another live stream next Tuesday. Doing another live stream next Wednesday. Sorry. Wait, give me a second. I'm a bit tired. So we'll be doing another live stream next Thursday. Next Thursday evening, we'll be doing another live stream. Hopefully by then we'll be able to celebrate having won through the second leg on Tuesday, and then a day or so to recover from that and all the celebrations, hopefully, and then live stream again next Thursday. Next Thursday. Okay. So thank you everybody for contributing, and we will join together again next Thursday at 9 o'clock. All things be equal, all things going to plan, and hopefully, as I say, a big celebration live stream next Thursday, celebrating our success, hopefully, cross fingers, on Tuesday. And so until next Thursday's live stream, goodbye. Good luck, Celtic, in getting through the second leg against LASK on Tuesday. And hail, hail.